Good evening to all of our friends and all of our supporters of the Marcia Weeks show. Welcome to this Monday evening. My goodness, October the 30th. And in just another day, our month of October is going to be gone, and we only just started. My goodness, time is flying. But we welcome you to this another Marcia Week show. It's a pleasure to have all of you with us again tonight. My name is Ferdinand Nichols. I am pastor of the House of Freedom Ministries in Barbados. I am a political activist, I guess you could call it. I am a Barbadian and a concerned citizen. As simple as that. Let's just leave it at that. But good evening, Carol and loyal daughter 66, Trevor. Good evening to you. Pleasure to have you in the house. And yes, we're going to hear something about that NCF business. I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And hopefully, when the others join me, they'll be chatting with me about it as well. Really great to have all of you with us. Lovely evening. Good evening, loyal opposition members, loyal daughter 66. Thank you so much for our support. Stand up, Barbados, for the future of our nation, and of course our Remien 6070. Thank you so much for your assistance and your support. We welcome all of you. Jefferson, good night to you. And Mimi, I'm going to call you Mimi 17. Amen. And Carol Barker. Oh, wonderful to have all of you with us tonight. We look forward to a great night. It's always a good night on the Marcia Week show as we delve into some of the things that, from a national standpoint, are of concern to us. I've been listening, to the Brass Tacks program, and you know what I find funny? I must tell you the truth. Night, Sherry, good to have you with us. I must tell you the truth. I am amused. I am so amused when I hear people come on and talk about how the government is doing this good and the government is doing this good and the government is doing this, and suggest that you have no right for um, questioning them or contending with them or indicating when something is wrong. You know, um, so it's just so funny, totally amazing. Um, and yes, don't forget, yesterday we didn't have a program last night because a number of us were just simply just beat. Caswell, he was not well. Um, uh, Kimar, he was exhausted, young man, but he was exhausted anyhow. He was exhausted from the march because I couldn't make the march. I had a previous engagement, and this young man, I understand, carried the entire march. Wow, wow. We have a really special guy in Kimar. And I know that we have some other young people like him. You remember last week, Wednesday, we had that show with the young people. And I hope Marcia is planning another one of them soon. I hope she is planning another one soon. Mark, good night to you too. Wayne MacD Austin, good night to you as well. A pleasure to have you in. But we want to thank you so much for understanding yet last night the need for all of these great men and women to get a break and to have a rest, and Marlon, not Marlon, as well. Yeah. Hey, look at Hannah. Hannah. Oh,
There.
oh,
I'm
wow.
here. I made it. I made
Yes,
it.
you made it. You made it. Marlon, good night to you too.
Good
Yes,
night,
Heather, it's so good to
everyone.
see you. Oh, wonderful to have you in the house. Love that
Thank you.
hairdo. Love that hairdo.
Thank you. Thank
As you,
you.
as you demonstrating your youthfulness, and look at the folk. Take a look at the shirt. You get a look at that shirt now. All right, that
The
young
weather
people.
is getting cold, right? So this is
Yes,
like it is
Heather. I
getting
heard
cold out.
that. I heard that. My wife is up in Colorado, and she sent us a picture, and she is up on one of the upper floors of the apartment where she's staying, and the ground floor is about half the way up of the person's patios and so on with snow. And for her,
Wow.
it was the first time of seeing snow. Oh wow.
Okay.
She beat me not only seeing it but being in it. I saw it once before when I was in Europe, but far, far away up on the mountain tops.
Okay.
But
We
she has
had,
had the uh
go ahead, go ahead.
she has had the opportunity to get into it. And I she beat me to that
Okay.
one. She beat me to that one.
Well, well, we had a wonderful Saturday. It was, the weather got up to 80 degrees. Can you imagine?
Oh, I can imagine that. Ours went way
Yes,
past that.
that was Saturday. And then
Yes.
Sunday, the complete opposite, rainy and cold. So at
Oh
least the
my
weather gave us
goodness.
one good day in the weekend.
Well, we didn't have a bad weekend ourselves, to be honest with you, Heather. We did have a little bit of rain on Saturday. I think there were some floods in one or two areas, but mainly up north. But it wasn't a bad day, really. Some showers here and there. And then, of course, yesterday was another good day. Today was another great day as well. But we are seeing some signs of things developing in the central and western Caribbean. They tell us that the systems coming across the Atlantic have kind of stopped for now until the end of the season. But there's a possibility of things developing in the Caribbean. So we
Okay.
still have to keep our eyes open. And of course, you all too.
There's a cold front that is coming across. That is why they're having snow in Colorado and those places out
Hmm.
in the Midwest.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
they have a different kind of cold from New York. They don't have, it is not as cold over there as it is in New York when it gets cold.
Well, anywhere that gets cold for my wife is cold.
Mm,
Oh my goodness. Yes, I know that it varies depending on where you are.
we
And
are
and
right.
um, and then you have what they call the wind chill factor, where where
Yes, yes.
where I think it's like what 30 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Fahrenheit, where the wind chill is like down in 20 or something like that.
But then it is, the wind affects it a lot. It does.
Well, I'll tell you this,
And
some people talk about, I just see somebody dropping in the chat talking about when hell freezes over. I tell you why, I refer to some of the people up north as God's chosen frozen,
I
so,
don't
but
know.
so nice to see you though.
It is nice to be here again. I
you
was
brought
away
out that.
for a bit of time, but it's nice to be back. But today was an extremely busy day, so I did my
Yes.
best to get here.
Well, I had a busy one too myself, but I got in early and I'm happy to be here too. Nigel, good to have you on the show as well. Queen McQueeness. I love some of these names, Heather. Rochelle
Everybody gives
Thornhill.
themselves a name.
Yes, yes. So nice to have them.
Oh,
But for sure, we missed the show last night, Heather, because Caswell wasn't well. Kimar was just beat after the march on Saturday. I didn't make it to the march, unfortunately, because I had a previous engagement. And of course, Marcia was out of the country. I think she might be back now. I think she's back in now. But she was out on assignment. But a lot has happened. During the time she was away, we had this matter with the National Cultural Foundation. I don't know if you've seen that with the Praise
um,
Academy of Dance, but we'll chat a little bit about that in just a minute. Um, but certainly a real joy to have all of you. We're up to 120 right now, and we want you to share, 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 share. And of course,
yes,
we look forward to your donations. We still have a couple of outstanding bills. The police have been taken care of. I think the song system has been taken care of, but I think the truck is still outstanding. And I believe, let me see if I have the figures for that. I think the truck was no, the truck was taken care of. I think the song is 800, so we still need to get some funds in for the truck. Contrary to the popular belief, Heather, that we have a right-wing organization in the United States that finances us.
well, as far as I know, the right wing organizations are supporting the Republican Party. So if we were the
Yes, as
Republican
far as I
Party, yes,
know.
we would get support, but unfortunately, we are not. So we're not getting the support.
Well, could we get a Republican Party in Barbados? I don't know. I we need some serious alternatives. We need to do politics, and I keep talking about it all the time. Heather, we just need to do politics in Barbados different. And when I hear the politicians open their mouths, all I hear regurgitating every time they open their mouths is the same old way. It reminds me of? It reminds me of the definition of insanity.
Oh
You, you,
dear.
you know that one? You do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing the same way and expect different results.
Exactly.
The same old rhetoric, the same practices, the same political rigmarole and garbage, the same disingenuous comments. And, I don't even want to mention any of them. They're not worth. Somebody said, "Oh, I thought you guys were Dems." I don't
So,
know if it means Dems as in Democrats or Dems as in DLP, but Easy D boy, we are neither Dems or Republican or Barbados Labour Party. We are the people's opposition of Barbados. We are Barbadian citizens who are standing up for the rights of citizens of Barbados, and we have chosen the people of Barbados to be the opposition to the government. And
um,
so
you know, go ahead.
no, no, you go ahead. I
Okay,
always am excited to hear what you say.
since that you mentioned the Republican Party, since we became a republic, since the island became a republic, why not have a Republican Party? I think it would make sense.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. And
Hmm.
I threw out something one night, Heather. I don't know if you were on the show, but I told them that if they were to elect me as prime minister, I would repeal every bill that has been
I might
passed.
do the same.
I tell you,
It'll be
I would repeal
funny,
every one
funny,
of them
funny,
and
funny.
carry it back to the people and start from scratch. Start from the people and engage the people because I thought that's what a republic is.
Yes. You know what I thought was going to happen when the present party, well, I think I had aspirations that they may have they may have tried to do something different. Because
Hmm.
technically, we come out, the country, politicians and the parties, they come out with a manifesto each
Hmm.
year
Yeah,
that comes from the party. The manifesto should come from the people.
people.
So we should have a broad base of things and ask, like send out a email blast to everybody and
Hmm.
find out what is it that you want to see in the next 5 years. And people would take what they want and voice the displeasure about what they don't want and so on. And we should, on that basis, go with what the majority wants. And then nobody would be dissatisfied if the things that people want are actually implemented, because then it will truly be from the people.
But they try that in Uganda and in Malawi, I think, and in Africa,
Hmm.
when the people decided they did not want same-sex marriage, and the United States government wanted to sanction them.
Well, it must be what the people want. The
I
Jamaicans
agree.
got what they wanted, right? They said
Yes,
no. They
as
got
a
what
matter
they
of
wanted. The
as a matter of
majority.
fact, the
It's
Jamaicans
even of the
took
majority.
the national ID card to the Supreme Court and won the case because it was unconstitutional. And I keep saying that we in Barbados need to test the law. I find that Barbadians accept things too easily. Just because it comes out of the mouth of a politician does not make it law and does not make it right. You
No.
know, that's all right, Ria. We can help change that negative connotation. Don't worry. No, but really, seriously, we tend to. Well, I don't know if it's the same, Heather, as it was before the pandemic, but Barbadians seem to be so trusting. And some people, I was saying at the beginning that I've been listening to brass tacks, and I hear people who are strong supporters of, let's say, the government or something, getting upset when people voice dissatisfaction or opposition to anything that the government does, almost as if the government was God. Um,
But
you
it
know,
can't be like that. It cannot.
no, it can't be. I mean, um, you can't have the people, all the people agreeing with you all of the time, and you shouldn't be chastising those who disagree with you and are critical of you, because much of what happens in development comes from criticism. When you pay attention to it, it may be drawing your attention to something of great importance, but
Something that you never thought of. Yes.
correct. I've
Yes.
often said that if I knew everything, I would be God and the world would be in trouble. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that they have a right to voice their agreement or disagreement, and they have a right to offer an alternative opinion or an alternative view. I mean,
That
even
is
here,
correct.
sometimes we don't agree on everything. You remember,
Hmm.
you remember a couple of days ago we were talking about voting, about mail-in ballots from different parts of the world to
Yes.
Barbados,
Yes.
and there
Yes.
were some of us who were fully supportive of it, and there were others who were not supportive of it, but we respected people's opinions. And what would happen inevitably is that we would sit down and look at the pros and the cons and see if
Mhm.
it's a workable thing that can be done, if it's amenable to everybody, answer and indicate the challenges persons might have, and
Uh,
that is healthy dialogue.
right. Know that you are on that point, right? Something that I thought of after we had that discussion
Hmm.
is that because of Barbados's size, many people leave Barbados in order to find work, right? It doesn't mean that they intend to give up their Barbadian citizenship or anything like that. It is to find work. We did it in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and now many young people are leaving. It doesn't mean that they are giving up their right to be a Barbadian. So I don't think
Hmm.
that that should exclude them from voting. They are going overseas to work, to get a job, because the country cannot or is not putting the physical infrastructure or the playing field in place where it can be level and that the young people can find work. So the idea of going overseas to work, to get a job, to work, to get
Hmm.
income is one major reason why many people have left Barbados, and that should not exclude them from voting.
I was listening to a little clip today from the governmental, the Labour Party's conference, and I think I heard the Prime Minister talking about the Barbadian population declining because so many people were leaving and going overseas and seeking employment everywhere else. That in itself needs to probably be addressed. And I'm looking for something else here at the moment, because she mentioned, and I want to be sure that I respond properly here. She mentioned two countries, uh, Belize and the Bahamas, and she was saying that I think 50 years ago or something like that, Barbados's population was 200 and what it was 200 and something thousand, not right, 230,000 or something like that. And at that time, the Bahamas and Belize were like 80,000 or something in that ballpark, or somewhere like that. But she said since then, the populations of the Bahamas and Belize have risen to over 800,000, while the population of Barbados has only risen to 260,000. I thought we were actually like 280,000. I don't know what are the reasons for that, because it's easy for people to throw figures out there and not uh, contextualize them. And when I say that, you would have to look at the reason for the increase in the population. Is it that there was a decline in abortions? Was it that there was more people migrating in because there were better opportunities there? What about the land mass? We're talking about 400,000 people in Belize, another 400 and something thousand in the Bahamas. Bahamas, I can't remember how many islands they say the Bahamas is,
A
and I
lot.
must look it
I
up.
don't
But now,
remember.
enough. I think this is 7,000 or something. How many? Let me see if Google could tell me. Google, how many islands in the Bahamas? Let me see if we can find that out. Because these days you don't have to type in anything. You know, you can ask your phone a question and it will tell you.
According to Bahamas.com, with 16 major islands, the
Yeah,
Bahamas is an unmatched destination, a heart-pounding adventure across 100,000 square miles of the world's clearest ocean.
they say nearly 700 islands. About 30 of the islands are inhabited. But they say it's across 100,000 square miles of ocean. So it seems to be quite a vastly expansive area with a lot of different islands. But you know, there's so many other components that can contribute to the
Right.
increase of the population. Ever since Barbados has legalized abortion, our population could have been affected by that. I'm not here to promote for or against. I'm just pointing out simple, straightforward facts. If
Yeah.
babies are not being born, it is only obvious that the population is not going to grow. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that, you know.
Right.
But then
But
you
if
have to,
we
yeah, go ahead.
argue that point, we have to argue the cost of living because that has a role to play. People are not going to get children and not being, some people rather are not going to
Yeah.
get children and not be in a
Hmm.
position to feed them. So there's a whole host of problems. It's not just one factor,
Exactly,
quite a few.
exactly, exactly. You know, so you can't just point and say, well, you know, people are migrating. There could be a number of reasons. You know, people have gone overseas to study, and while they're studying, they have an opportunity to develop themselves overseas, and there's so many different factors that can be involved.
Yes,
What is needed if you want to keep your population in your country is vision, Heather. Vision.
I
and
agree.
and you know,
I agree.
we've been talking about education reform. You know how long we've been talking about education reform? Nearly since I was in short pants. You know, the current prime minister was minister of education for a considerable period of time when the Oinata government was in office. We were talking education reform as far back as when my mother was a head teacher at the Boscobel School in St. Peter, and then subsequently at St. Louis School in St. George. And we were talking education reform since then. And maybe what we are lacking in Barbados is a vision. I hear people talking about industrialization, and I am asking, what century are you living in? You know, you remember there was a
Um,
time we had a lot of industries in Barbados. Remember, you had things like the Elite
I
Shirt
do.
Factory and different
Right.
shirt company. You remember when uh what is the name of the company again now? I see Calzone in the back. Well, I bring him in because he might be able to help me. He might be able to help me
Yes.
with this. Caswell, be bringing you in, my
Good
brother. Good evening.
evening. Good evening,
Good
Caswell. How are
evening.
you?
Well, I am
How was
boxing
the
back.
march? How
Yeah,
was?
I
Did you
heard
go
you
to
were.
the
Boxing back.
march?
I I was suffering from a bout of what people might call liquidness,
Yes. Oh dear.
gout.
Well, I was so sorry to hear that because I couldn't make it, and I was sure that you and Kimara would have been there, and then I discovered and heard that you were not well. So it's really good to see you, and we trust that you're recovering well. But yes, thank you, Sir Alfred,
I
my
am doing
co-garment factory.
I am doing what I should have done before. I'm staying away from the meat
Okay,
stuff like
okay.
that. You
You
know?
know the other thing in terms of migration, Heather, that I was trying to find the information today, and we were just chatting a little bit, Caswell, about the population references that were made over the weekend. You know, to Belize and the Bahamas compared to Barbados and so on. So we were just touching on a few of the reasons that you know populations could be increasing, decreasing, or whatever.
I,
There's
I,
so many
I, I
factors.
I went to Belize some years ago, I think back in the
Mhm.
90s. Lovely place.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you know, and but it is 50 times the size of Barbados.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask Google. I was
It's
just
actually
about to
it's
ask.
8,860 something square miles.
So when you talk 400,000 people in 800, in how much?
8,800 let me Google it for you because I'm 9 times with it and I can find it for you.
Most likely it is still underpopulated. When I visited a long time
It,
ago,
it,
it
it, it
was.
is it is 8,867 square miles.
Yes,
Barbados is
yes.
166 square miles. Let me do a quick sum here for you.
And the
But
population of Belize is 403,000.
right, and that's 53.415. That's 50. That's all 50 times the size of Barbados. I
Right.
remember
Wow.
driving in Belize, and I drive for miles before I see the next house. All right.
Yep.
So a lot better. We visited Mexico and Guatemala because we had a conference in Belize and a credit union conference. So we went down. We thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, but it's expansive and we didn't get a chance to see much because we were mostly in conference. And what little we saw over a couple of days when we were in the conference and stuff, Belize is a vast place.
It
So if you
is.
have, so you can't really compare. And I don't know who made the
That works out.
comparison because I when you said that it happened over the weekend, I suspect you were talking about um something that happened at the Barbados the party conference. But I don't listen to it because
Well,
what I saw turned my stomach. You know, I
but listen,
saw
listen, before you go into that, you said 8,867 square miles, right? And
yes,
we have a population of 403,000. All right. That calculates to 45 people per square mile. Okay.
It is underpopulated.
Right.
That's all
Barbados
we
is
see.
166 square miles with a population, I am told, here from the weekend of 260,000. By my calculations, that works out to be 1,566 people per square mile. So
you see, look,
if you were to take the population of Barbados and put them in Belize, it would be less than 25 people per square mile. How can that's not comparing apples and apples. That's comparing apples and oranges.
but
Because
politicians like to give you a lot of silly data, and for fun, and especially when you have a captive audience and a captured audience, because you have usually BLP yards at those conferences, so they're not thinking every word she says. They hang on to, and she still makes it think it sound good, right? But
mhm,
if that is the case, I did my part. I put four other people. I brought four other people here. What did she do? If we were so underpopulated, you know, she could have gone and get some like everybody else. So I don't know what she's talking about. I bring four.
but they
Mind you,
say
my
that they're
father,
looking to
my
bring,
father brought 50. My father brought 15.
and I brought let me see, I brought 3 and 6 or 9. I brought 9. By
I
extension,
only
I
brought one.
That's more than some of the people who are complaining, Heather. That's more
I'm
than
not
some of the people
saying
that
a
are
word.
complaining.
I'm not saying a word. I'm not saying a word. But listen, I heard some years ago, because we're talking, if we talk migration, I understood that that it takes about 2.1 persons born to a couple per year, or something like that, to maintain a culture. That is what I understood. You can look at that while I'm talking, Caswell. How many people does it take to maintain a culture? How many babies born it takes to maintain a culture? I understood in it was about 2.1 in Europe needed to maintain the culture of Europe. And there was a concern because it had dropped below 2 to 1.6 or 1.7, something of that nature. And the worrisome trend was that the immigrating Muslims were giving birth to children at the rate of 8 children per couple, so that they were projecting that it would not be long before the entire European area was overrun by Muslims through immigration. Now, when I say Muslims, I'm speaking of people from the Middle East. We're not talking here religion at the moment. You know, some people can get bogged down into religious stuff, but I'm simply talking about the culture of Europe uh, being under threat of being replaced by a Middle Eastern culture because, you know, they promote more than one wife for one. So you can have 3, 4, 5 wives. Of course, they're encouraged to have children, and so there are large families. Now,
But
over here,
a lot of
you
you would not remember. Um, But Fiji, some years ago, there was a coup. The head of the army then, of a guy called Rambuka, Sitivini Rambuka, he staged a coup because the Indian population of Belize, who are immigrants and people who then breed like what you're talking about,
Hmm.
took over parliament because there were more Indians now in Fiji than native Fijians because the Indians came in and they bred fast. And Rambuka said, "Oh no, that didn't happen in here." And he staged a coup and said, "Fiji for Fijians." The Commonwealth, including Barbados, criticized him and condemned him for his action because he wanted to keep Fiji in native,
Hmm.
right? So that's basically what we're talking about. Because when it went to Belize, you were seeing influx of Chinese into Belize. It just started, and we're getting them here now too. So the next thing you know, the next 50 years, the average Barbadian is not going to look like you and me, Freddie. They're going to be Chinese and Indians. Well, if that's good or bad, I don't know yet. But I don't think I will have to wait and see because I ain't going to be here.
Well, the only problem is that our offspring are going to be here, so that's why we are fighting so hard now, because we want to be able to preserve our country for our offspring. And we have nothing against. I certainly don't have anything against people migrating to Barbados, and so on. But I thought it was a little. I don't want to say the word disingenuous, but I didn't think it was a fair comparison to pit Barbados against Belize and against the Bahamas. The first thing is that the Bahamas is sitting a stone's throw off the North American coastline. People don't have to do anything more than to jump on a boat in the Bahamas. You got to fly 3.5 hours to get here. It costs a lot, and contrary to popular belief, Caswell, this is one of the most expensive destinations in the Caribbean.
It
Now,
is.
yeah, I listen, I've been going to Cayman now for 17, 18 years. And I remember people always telling me that the Cayman Islands is extremely expensive. Well, I arrived in the Cayman Islands and found a package of soda big selling in the supermarket for 57 cents. And the Cayman dollar is $1.28 US or $1.23 US, I'm sorry. So that these soda bigs are selling in the Cayman Islands for nearly $1 plus cheaper than they're selling in Barbados. Now,
Wow.
people would argue, well, the cost of living here in terms of the salaries and so forth are higher. I don't know. I know that in Cayman there is a lot of foreign labor and taken advantage of because no unions are there. Casual, you need to go over and start one, but I wish you luck. There are no unions in the Cayman Islands, so there's nobody to defend an employee when anything happens. Okay, so most of the people there, a lot of the people are Jamaicans, they're Filipinos, and from different parts of the world. They're accepting whatever income they can make because, of course, the Cayman dollar is stronger than the U.S. So when you get 500 CI dollars, you're getting around 560 something or somewhere in that area. My calculations may be a little off. U.S. dollars.
But
So
for
that is.
but Freddie, you must also remember that in Barbados, we try to make the people who make and supply stuff try to get rich off of every sale. Because I normally would go to St. Lucia on a regular basis, but except since COVID, I didn't travel because I really didn't want to contract it, and I didn't trade. But I've been to St. Lucia. I've been to St. Lucia every year for years, and I remember one day going into a supermarket across from my mother-in-law's house, and I saw Pine Hill Dairy juices, and they were cheaper than in Barbados. So I thought it was a mistake. So I said, well, you know something? I need some juice. So I'm going to buy a whole set because when the people realize they make a mistake, they at least got the things already. And so I bought, instead of buying two juices, I bought about four and can't put them in the fridge. It's Christmas time, the fridge full, and the really got to find room to put my juices in the fridge. And then the next day I went to the town. And somebody just told me, just go in the store, man. And they were cheaper, even cheaper
Wow.
than the ones in the countryside where I was staying.
Wow.
And these are juices made in Barbados and shipped to St. Lucia. The same thing for these cough medicines made at Collins, we call it in the Warrens,
Yes, yes.
Carolina Laboratories.
Iron.
You go into Minville and Chastity drugstore, and the medicines are cheaper. Like one cough syrup in Barbados was being retailed at Collins Limited for $12, and that same one was 7.30 something in St. Lucia. So we are expensive because we choose. You could have gone to St. Lucia and buy our cement cheaper in St. Lucia, I mean in St. Vincent, than you were getting here in Barbados. Because we don't charge you what the thing is valued at in Barbados, We charge you what the market will bear.
There you go. Kazul, you're absolutely correct. When I first brought, um, because I don't often talk about it, but I'm the person who brought BMW to Barbados. I am the individual that initiated the arrival of the BMW dealership in Barbados. I'm not talking about used cars. I'm talking about the dealership. And I remember when I was engaging the discussions with BMW and with the board of directors of the then Barbados Shipping and Trading, and we were talking about price positioning of these cars. um, they were looking at what the market could bear. And I was simply saying, but if the thing costs me X and we market it Y, then we sell it for Z. And that was my philosophy. But they weren't. They were saying, well, Simpson Motors is selling the Mercedes Benz for 220 C1 180. So we should sell the BMW 316 for 220,000. Mind you, it cost them 100,000 or 95,000 to bring the car into the island, duty pay and everything. So if you were to put on a reasonable markup, 15, 20, 25%, the car would sell for 125,000 or 130,000, which is what we did. We inevitably did it. And the rest is history, because you can see how many BMWs on the road in Barbados. So the rest is history. And what it resulted in is Kevin Simpson having to drop the prices of his Mercedes Benz car. We were murdering him on the road when it came to sales. So that philosophy that you're talking about is one that has driven the cost of living in Barbados up. I remember talking with a contractor, a good friend of mine, and at the time, this was a few years ago, and at the time, properties were being constructed in Barbados for about $263 a square foot. All right. And I asked him, I said, tell me something. How much does it cost a contractor? How much does it cost you to build a home in Barbados? He told me, he said, Ferdinand, about $170 a square foot. So that we have people in Barbados who are selling homes making $100 a square foot profit on housing. And then we wonder why things are so expensive in Barbados. So you're bringing. I went to Florida because we were trying to get the distributorship for a brand of homes, a brand of circular homes out of the U.S. To introduce here to Barbados. We actually did a couple of conferences here with them, and I went into a outlet in Tampa, Caswell. It was run by people from Turkey. All right, travertine tiles. You're muted,
No,
Caswell.
I'm
You don't.
not familiar with them.
You're not familiar. Travertine tile is a stone tile. It's supposed to be very expensive tile here. I'm not sure what it sells for now, but back then it was selling like for about 45 or $50 a square foot. You know what? Those people were offering me to buy a container of travertine tiles to put into homes when we built them. $2.60 US, because they own the quarry in Turkey. And I said, but if they could offer me at 2060 US cents a square foot, and I am nobody, I'm a small man. What about all these people who bringing in 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 containers? So the reality is that really we could see prices brought down in Barbados. We could, but as you said before, I think it was you. I can't remember if it was you or Kimar that said really that at the end of the day, we got to deal with this matter of greed.
No, it was me who talked about that because it is not only greed, it is income for the merchants' children, salaries. Because we have a lot, and Freddie went to school with a lot of them. I went to school
Yeah,
with
I
some
did.
of them.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
they go to school, they refuse to learn anything because they knew when they finished school, that they will have a job waiting for them and they play the fool. And then you see some of them as managers and all kind of stuff in these businesses. They don't do any real work for the company because the people at the supervisory level and below, they do the real work. But they sit at the top, get company cars, get fancy offices, get lunches and all kind of stuff when they come, and they do no useful work. But their parents own the companies. So
Hmm.
you find work for them. And in order to find work for them, you have to cap the prices as well. It's happening all over the place. All over Barbados. And I said people idiot children. My wife didn't like me to say that the other night. So I had to cut it back. But you have a lot of people, a lot of companies in Barbados where you will go in and you will see a lot of people walking about. And there was a particular one hardware store. And you ask a fella for a six-penny nail. You don't know what you're talking about. You call a fella and say, well, you know what six-penny nail is? But he's supervisor, you know. Then we have in retail people who wholesale and sell things. There's one company in Barbados, the receptionist gets a company car. Right? That is where our markups are going. That's where the markups are going. And the government refuses to do anything about it because those markups also go to campaign, to finance campaigns. So if you tell the people, well, I'm not going to let you make this exorbitant um, um, markups, then when the time comes for election, you're looking for money to run your election, you ain't getting none. So it is the government, and I'm not talking about necessarily Barbados, the party administration right now. I mean every government that ran Barbados has allowed people to gouge. Look, there is a miscellaneous controls act still on the books where prices can be controlled, where the minister can control the price. You can say, well, look, you can either control it by actual dollar value or you can by markup. When I worked in the price control division, there were lots of items that were price controlled. And you would have to submit your invoices to the price control division to approve the prices that you were going to charge. If you didn't do that, there was a penalty, court fines that you will have to pay. Nobody does that anymore. They take everything off price control. No, at least if anything's left, I don't know because the price control inspectors now only go and check the stores and compare prices, but they don't do anything with information after that.
I see a question here, a comment here, Caswell. Um, Easy D, reasonable. What is the solution for the increase of costs? Any idea? Well, I think I could give one solution, and that is to access alternative sources. Like you remember, I think I expressed it in one of the parliamentary meetings we had in Baxter Road that there was a Brazilian company. There is, not was, there is a Brazilian company that I am working with in trying to help to bring down costs. That we just arrange a shipment of supplies from that Brazilian company to a merchant in St. Lucia, the same St. Lucia, Caswell. I was just there a couple of months ago too, because that's where my wife is from, and I,
Mine
I
too.
really I didn't even know that. My goodness. But there, I saw prices there that to me, while they were cheaper than in Barbados, they were expensive to me for St. Lucians because, of course, they don't get the same level of salary payments and so forth that Barbadians would obtain. But and so we just arranged a connection with that Brazilian company. And one of the things that I heard being talked about, I think Heather, it was you. I think you. I wasn't the parliament. It was you, Heather, that talked about a co-op. Wasn't it you that talked about a co-op?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a co-op. Of if
Yes.
you can get people come together, and this is probably
Um,
one of the. Yeah, go ahead, there. Go ahead.
I was thinking co-op, but no, perhaps not a co-op, a company, some
Hmm.
other name for it, not a co-op. I've had too much. problems forming a co-op in Barbados, and I don't wish to go down that road again. I wouldn't advise anybody to do it. Nope.
But when I think of co-op, to be honest with you, I am not even thinking company. I'm actually thinking of a group of people getting together, and
Yes,
that's
yes,
what I am thinking about. Let them form a
yes,
company, if anything, but let them get
yes.
together. And I don't know. Some people might agree with me. Some people might disagree with me. But I find that I gotta be so careful, because ministers of religion gotta be careful what they say, because then the next thing you'll hear is they walk off and say that the reverend was racist. But I find that other nationalities or other ethnic groups, let me be politically correct. I find other ethnic groups rally together, Caswell, a lot better than we do. And you talk about family situations. How many of us bring our families into what we are doing? Brothers and sisters, and even if they're stepbrothers or stepsisters, I don't know. I went the other day at a particular car parts company to buy some oil, and there was not a single Bajan Negro behind the counter, not one.
And I'll tell you something. Government is responsible for that problem. If you see it as a problem, I well recall I worked at price control, as I told you. Some black entrepreneurs started to bring in used cars, pre-owned cars, as they were calling them back in those days, and the government raised the taxes, the consumption taxes on those vehicles. As a matter of fact, they raised the consumption taxes on all vehicles, but then they gave the garages a rebate. So it meant that your vehicle that you brought in so much cheaper than anybody else, you had to sell it more expensive because of the imposition of the taxes that government paid. So the government made sure that those black businessmen did not prosper. That was in the early 1980s because they worked at price control then. And the Barbadian Party was in power at the time. So it is nothing new. They conspired with the car dealers because they would say, "Oh, the car dealers will go to business." Like that. If you have a business and you can't compete, go out and let the market take care of itself. No, they do everything possible to make sure that those businesses survive. They, the, the government, the same thing goes with contracts. Who do you think get the most lucrative contracts in Barbados? Not the black businessmen. They make sure that those companies survive. So
Mhm.
it is you're talking about racism and all kind of stuff and talking about you don't want to see racism. It is not racism, it's facts. I because I am not racist. I'm the least racist man. The problem is that when you speak to it, people will say, "Oh, you just want to be racist and all kind of stuff." It is not being racist if you're telling the truth. And
Exactly.
and and government, these governments, and particularly the Barbados Labour Party. Barbados Labour Party has been courting the white businesses in Barbados for so long that you would think it is a white party, and they get what they want, and the government, the parties get a lot of money for the campaigns based on the kind of money that the people who you court have. So you will see that the other political parties don't get as much campaign donations as the Barbados Labour Party because the Barbados Labour Party know where their bread is buttered, and it is buttered out there with them, and people come, and then you will see a whole bunch of black people. Look, again, I'm going to talk about it. NSRL. Who were the people paying the NSRL? The companies, the people who import stuff into Barbados and retail them. Who are those people? Mostly white business people. And they did not want to pay the NSRL because the NSRL, you cannot get your goods out of the harbor or the airport unless you pay that tax. The NSRL was the fairest tax that we ever had. And what happened? The Barbados Labour Party, while in opposition, campaigned with the white businesses in Barbados to get rid of that tax, telling people that the prices are going to come down. and that they will remove that tax as soon as they get into power. And they did. One of their first acts was to get rid of the NSRL. So don't let them fool you. You know, we always say, don't mind nigger money actions. Well, this Barbados Labour Party administration is the party of the rich business class in Barbados. They try not to be, they try not to try to sell you something else, but that is exactly what happens. All their actions, all the actions that they take, benefit the rich people. And I hear the prime minister now saying, "Oh, that telling the businesses that they might lower, that they might have to raise the taxes, the corporate, the taxes that they got to pay. Remember, they lower the corporation tax to 5%. Who did that benefited? The people would say, "Oh, the international business, they're right now, they're ready, and that's the business. Are we being blacklisted and all kind of stuff?" So,
Uh-uh.
but you believe that?
Uh-uh.
But
That ain't
that's what I'm
true.
telling you. That's what I'm
That
telling
ain't
you.
true.
They did it to make sure those people make money because they want to get some. And and a whole bunch of people around with black and red shirts. You ever see those white people wearing my red shirts? Not one. But the black people run around the country making themselves look silly and red shirts. They are bees and all kind of stuff. And they are suffering. The people who took the money in the campaigns, they're not. And you rush out there and get them 30 seats, and then you get them 30 seats again, and you are suffering. You were suffering back then, and you're suffering now because you allow people to play with your mind. To tell you, oh, you're a B and you're a D and all kind of nonsense, and you're going to suffer as a result.
You know, Caswell, I went, I'm not gonna call the names, but I took information to all the major supermarkets in Barbados because this Brazilian company is one of the major suppliers of food in the United States. All right. And we made a connection because of my appointments and so on through the organization. And as a result of that, we could see prices come down in Barbados. But I suspect that even if we were to be able to negotiate lower first costs, I have never seen lower first costs on anything in Barbados passed on to the consumer. Have you? I stand to be corrected.
Look,
Have you ever seen? You ever saw that happen?
when
Lower
I
first
first
costs.
when I first left school, among the first jobs that I got was customs clerk at the cost and Musson. The cost and Musson did importation of a lot of stuff. A lot of people didn't know. You remember that their own Fort Royal garage, their own elite shirt factory. So I got to see, uh, as the customs clerk, a lot of what is happening, or what was happening with the prices in Barbados. Car parts. I remember brake shoes. Brake shoes were being bought into Barbados in a barrel. You know, the people used to fill up a barrel and sell them to you. And they worked out less than $1 when I did the customs documents for them. But when you see them bring retail, and $1 no more, and even $2. So everything they make sure we at the staff that got appointed receive anything over $200, you get a cost plus 15%. And when you see the price that the staff got to compare what they want to sell, you say, "Whoa! You cannot believe the markup the other people got." And we were getting a markup of 15% for staff. So you imagine if staff was getting a really reduced markup because we were staff, and that was 15%. They could
So
and they made a hefty profit from the staff, but yeah, still they will go and the markup sometimes for some items were more than 100%.
you know, Kenneth, well, some years ago, and I don't know, Heather. I hear what you're saying about a company, and I want to promote and advocate for something here with you. You know, some years ago, I left a job I was in to go to work in a buying club in one of the local churches, And what was happening in that local church was that the people came together and bought food in bulk, right, to supply the buying club. And as a result of that, let's say a tin of milk, or let me say a carton of milk that was selling in the supermarket for the $7.65 was selling at the buying club for $5.50 because our markup was just enough to cover administrative costs, electricity, telephone, that kind of thing, right? So I am thinking that it would not be a bad idea for people to start looking seriously, because somebody asked, "What can we do about the bringing down of prices?" If Barbadian people were to get together and begin to form, I don't know if community mini marts or what they can do, where they can purchase food in bulk and you know keep your costs to a reasonable amount. You got to pay staff and so on. But I have found sometimes, Caswell, that even some of the little mini marts, because they can't buy in the bulk amount that major supermarkets can buy in. And so you go into them and you find that their prices are generally a lot higher. So one of the things I think that can be done is you could have a number of small buying clubs, maybe your church or community group or something like that. That's one. The second thing is what you're suggesting, Heather. We're a cooperative of people, not a co-op, a cooperative of people come together,
Okay.
pool their financial resources. You could determine the percentages in terms of profit that you can relate to in terms of what a person is contributing to the pool, and start their own supermarket and start importing from locations that are less expensive than some of the traditional ones. And to be honest with you, I'm saying that, but at the same time, my mind just hit the fact that sometimes the issue is not the first cost in those countries, Caswell. The first costs in those countries that are imported from are generally quite low, especially when you're buying in bulk. But there's a certain company in Barbados that has a buying aspect of it in Florida. And they buy at one price and then turn around and sell to their Barbadian company at a higher price. So they're making two levels of profit. And then a third level of profit when they put it into the consumer market here in Barbados and sell it. So sometimes the issue is not that the first cost is high. The issue is that you have all of these, what you call them again now, these intermediaries, which are often the same people that are all marking up on top of what the original purchase price was. You ever heard of Waitrose? Anybody ever heard of
No.
Waitrose?
What is it?
Yes.
Waitrose is a brand. I think it comes out of Canada. I think so. I stand to be corrected. It's either Canada or the UK, one of the two. Well, we have a lot of rose products in Barbados, and I have observed from some people, I won't call the name of the country, that they tell me that some of the products that they came into Barbados and saw on the shelves selling are outdated in the home company where they are made. You have you heard anything about that, Caswell? You're aware of any of that?
No, I am
Right,
not
so
familiar
yeah.
either.
And I have seen some of them myself. I know people who've come in and said, "But how come you all are selling this here?" But because this is off the shelf in the particular country that they're in, and it's not permitted to be sold. This thing is outdated, and these kind of things that I'm hearing. So we,
You mean that the shelf life has expired? It has
the shelf
expired the
life
shelf
has
life?
expired. Yeah, that's what they mean. No, it's
Lord,
not necessary that the thing is bad, huh, Heather? Because I
I
did some work in
understand.
Cayman, and I remember when I arrived there, there was some juices in the freezer of the company I was working with, a charitable organization. And
Mhm.
when I took one of those juices out and I carried it home, thawed it out, and I used that juice was dated best by November of the year before I went. And I went in April or May of the following year. And I took that juice home. I thawed it and I drank that for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And it was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. So I am
Okay.
aware of the fact. In most cases, Best Buy doesn't mean that the thing is bad or spoiled. It just means that the company has to take it off the shelf by that time.
Okay.
Freddie, you mentioned something about people buying and selling to themselves. Hey, that was going on for years. I
Hmm.
remember KF Shepherd had a buying company in Miami who used to buy things and then sell them to KF Shepherd in Barbados. Right? We have other people doing it, and that's the problem. The cost mustn't really work. They owned, as I told you earlier, Fort Royal Garage. The Costa never sold a single car. They never sold a single car part. All of the car parts that I imported for them was sold to Fort Royal Garage. So they made a profit and then they sold it to their subsidiary who made a profit on it as well. You know? So that has been business practice in Barbados for years. You have a large company thing now, Trinidadian company take over BSNT, and they now have one of the biggest wholesalers in Barbados, and they have supermarkets. Now, those little businessmen that you were talking about, you think if they want to get some stuff, that they can go to Massey and get it before Massey stores,
No,
Superzen and stuff? That is the problem. We
no,
have to, they're almost like a monopoly.
but not
And,
almost like they are.
well, close enough. And the big joke is, and I verified this with my friends at Customs, they import things into Barbados and transship them to the other companies where they are very located, even in Trinidad. But they
Yes,
use Barbados foreign exchange to buy them. So when we
and
are suffering from lack of foreign exchange, we don't have the foreign exchange, and we going about the prime minister going about cap in hand begging for foreign exchange, and then Massey take it and sell it and buy stuff and distribute it in Trinidad and in St. Lucia, wherever else they got businesses.
and mind you, they can't get U.S. currency in Trinidad. I just came off of a virtual meeting with four Trinidadians, the president of the company in Brazil, and myself. And the number one hurdle they have to overcome is accessing U.S. currency to buy the goods. They can't get it. That's why what you're saying is actually happening. That's why they purchase up all of our, well, I will not say all of our companies, one of our major companies here in Barbados, so they can import from around the world and still send goods into Trinidad to supply their supermarkets because they would be purchasing those goods from Trinidad. I understand they don't use U.S. dollars anymore because I heard, but I shouldn't say anymore. I understand there was supposed to be a negotiation going on between the Prime Minister of the Caribbean to be able to trade now in the country's currencies within the Caribbean. I don't know if people have heard about that, but I heard that straight from the horse's mouth.
That was going on now for I mean, talk about that for a long time. As a matter of fact, we had the CARICOM clearing facility that you remember where Barbados was actually the country who ended up holding the bag because we used to trade, it should be in Trinidad dollars.
Hmm.
And Guyana owed Barbados millions and never paid. And I think they might read it off by now. So they tried that already. But because of dishonesty among our own peoples, it didn't work. But now we are out there, and I think if I know this, and I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, if I
Hmm.
know that these people are actually using Barbados for an exchange to buy stuff to sell to Trinidad and send to Trinidad, the government got to know too. And what is the government doing about it? No campaign donations. You understand? So we will suffer because politicians want to get their hands on favors from the people who got money in Barbados. And our people are suffering. You
What do
want to
you
know one of the
call?
reasons why we got you want to know why you want to know why we ain't got that little children there? You ever went to buy baby milk?
Friend, don't go there. I went in a store one day to pick up a can of baby milk for my son. I couldn't believe the price. It was nearly $100.
You better believe it.
It was
And,
nearly.
and,
I'm
and, and
serious. It
that,
was nearly $100, and that, and incidentally, Caswell, I think that was organic baby food. It was, and it was specified because his daughter has a challenge, in terms of a nerve challenge, and that specific baby food was identified, and I know where it sells, not far away from where we are here, going the opposite direction, up north, um, and it was nearly $100 for the can, and they have to purchase that, I think, every 4 weeks or something like that.
yeah. When you want these little cans that don't last a week, $30. So that could be why. So tell the people who are saying that Barbados got enough people in it, tell them one, they missed the boat and didn't get any for themselves, and two, they are allowing the prices to get, because like even diapers, because nobody don't want to cut up flybys. Like I had when I was a little boy. They used to cut the flybys up and fold them in triangles and put them on here and pin with stickers. Sometimes if it get open, nobody does that anymore. No, you're going to buy diapers, Pampers, or whatever brand you want. Thing, they're expensive. Trust me. And I tell you something, you laugh. But babies like they know you're changing the baby, you put them there next thing as soon as you done bathe them and everything, put them on the pamper, baby the and you got to change that pamper the same time. You know what I mean?
I
And
mean,
we could have put it in the water, but we didn't know back then.
I know my children grew up with cloth diapers. We use a lot of cloth diapers when our children were babies. We didn't use a lot of that. My wife didn't like it because it would give them rashes and all that kind of stuff. So she didn't like it at all. But we can come up with some solutions, Heather, to reduce the cost of.
Yes, we can.
Let,
Yes, we
There,
can.
there are countries. I saw somebody put up here. I think we put it up just now. Brazil. Let me see if I can get it. Brazil is one. Brazil, Mexico, Canada, some other South American countries. They produce organic foods, and their prices are very reasonable. And you don't get anybody here looking to purchase. And even if they did, you see, my problem is that even if they did, it doesn't pass on to the consumer. That is my problem.
no, because we have this culture in Barbados too that if it costs enough, it expense it good. You go into a store and you see something cheap. I give
Cheap things no good.
yeah, and you won't buy it because
Good things no cheap.
yeah, and it is just as good as the thing that really expensive, the brand name stuff. So that's one of the things that we got to do too. We got to stop being snobbish because we look down at stuff that good because it's cheap. Not that everything that is cheap is good, but there are things that you can find that the prices are good quality, and but we have conditioned ourselves to buy the most expensive one. And you would look around. I remember one day I went into a store, not calling the name though, and there were several um, bottles of cooking oil. And this woman said, she looked at the cheaper one. She said, "Oh, I don't buy that. I buy another brand." You see, the thing is, all of them were made by the same people, and all they did was put different company labels on them.
I can substantiate that, Caswell. I lived in Trinidad for 3 years, and I remember going to a factory that produces bleach. Bleach,
Mm-hmm.
and the same company producing bleach, and there were like 10 different bottles that the same bleach was going into. And I go into the supermarket and see one bottle selling for $10 and something cents a gallon. The other bottle selling for $6 and something cents a gallon. I mean here in Barbados, because in Trinidad it would be a lot more numerically than that. And I smile. I remember telling my wife, pick up the one for $6 for me. The first time I told her that, she asked me why. I said, "You forget that come out the same pipe," and I named the name of the company. in Trinidad. See about the same pipe as that one. So pick it you want for $6 for me.
The thing is, bleach is bleach. All of them have the same strength, but you have
You know,
one Clorox. Is it better known, and that's more expensive, but it's the same strength because I did a little bit of chemistry when I was going to school, but so I ain't gonna come here and try to spoke chemistry, no. But trust me when they tell you that they're not better than the next, but be like the more expensive one, and people tell me, "Oh, it's better." That's one thing. So we need to play some like for instance, they have like generic things. You
well,
know,
mhm.
you for instance, you go to a company that makes shoes in Vietnam or wherever you go. The first few thousand of those shoes, the people from Nike get them and put Nike labels on them, churning them out, and then somebody else come and they get some other shoes and they say that maybe the same factory but the same people, but Nike ones got Nike label on them, so they're more expensive. But the same people are making the other no-name ones, and we are
But
not.
that you remember when they used to have a brand of video machines, Sony, Panasonic.
Mm,
Remember that?
yeah,
Sony used to produce Panasonic. Sony was the expensive machine, and Panasonic was the less expensive machine. But Sony made it. Same
yeah,
company.
yeah. They're like, even now, I remember there's a car called a Familia and Mazelantis, identical vehicles, same parts, same everything, with same people. But we prefer one to the other. But they just change it, and you can take one part of it and put in the other one, and they can work. They're not different. But again, Bajans allow themselves to be tricked.
Well, I
And,
see.
and something that we can do to keep prices, to make sure our prices are down, you know, is to go to the places that don't have the big set of staff to, to, to support. But I talking about the CEOs and the um, man, the executive director this and executive director that, all of them gonna get paid. You can go to the smaller businesses in Barbados and buy this and patronize them. You'll be surprised your bill goes up. I'm not going to advertise for my friend, buy shop at his place and they get better prices than when they go elsewhere. I'm not going to advertise from here. That's he got to pay for your own advertising. We don't advertise on this show.
Yeah, well, I see Sir Alfred Benjamin um, talking something there with cars, Toyota and Lexus, but and he's right. Somebody told me this evening that you know how Lexus got its name, Luxury Executive US. And so got its name because they wanted to do a luxury brand vehicle, and that's how the Lexus got its name. Key Mars in the house, Caswell. It's good to see him, and I would like to welcome him in to join us in the show tonight. Kimar, welcome. So good to have you, my friend, my good brother. Great to have you in the show with us tonight. Would you go right ahead and greet the people and maybe share some opening thoughts that you might have?
Hey,
Welcome.
everybody.
Welcome.
Hey, hey, I'm glad to see you all again. Thanks for having me once more. Unfortunately, I was not indoors. I could have been listening to the first hour of the meeting, but the last bits I got, I heard people speaking about knockoff shoes and knockoff materials. And that's a good. Cause right now we got knockoff parliamentarians, so that's a good. Yeah, that's very good.
I I,
Uh,
I,
yeah.
I want to talk about them a little later.
Dear me. But before you all get too far into this, there is something that disturbed me over the weekend that I'd like to put to you as a panel this evening. Now, this is the Marcia Week show, and over the last week, her dance production, the Praise Academy of Dance, did a number for the NIFCA to qualify for NIFCA. And according to what I received, they were disqualified. My Praise Academy is a Christian dance school that believes in Christianity and practices their faith. And they went to NIFCA to do a number that expressed their faith. And in expressing that faith, they treated to the fact that there were two genders. And from what I was made to understand, it seemed that the judges, one judge in particular, was so irate that they,
Can you repeat what you're saying? You are going in and out.
oh, okay, what did you hear last?
Start again about the NIFCA.
Yeah, there. Marcia
Start
has
again.
a group in her ministry in her school, Praise Academy of Dance. You're hearing me good now?
Yes.
Good. And they did a submission of a number to NIFCA, where they represented, being a Christian-based dance group, they represented a Christian position on gender, and they promoted that in gender. And my understanding was that there were some judges that were so irate that inevitably they they claimed that the piece violated the rules, that no entry should exceed the bounds of taste. The piece, in the judge's opinion, it denounces a particular community which is not in good taste. Now, I did not know that we had legislation in Barbados that treated to any community to do with gender. I wasn't aware of that. It's not in good taste according to the rules of the competition, identifying a particular community and saying that they are wrong. Of course, they're speaking to the fact that the young people promoted two genders, male and female, according to Genesis chapter 3. And the NCF is an inclusive organization, and this piece does not support that point of view. Emotion behind the delivery of the piece was aggressive. So you can be passionate now in your presentation. It is now considered aggressive. And they were concerned. Listen to this one. They were concerned that we were using children to promote discrimination. Mind you, this is a Christian dance group that is expressing a number on the basis of their faith, and they were disqualified on the basis of their faith. All right. I don't know
Before
if you all were aware of this, but this came back to me. Um, Children were
I
censored for sharing their faith and their beliefs.
I want to ask something. What were the rules, or what are the rules and the regulations of NIFCA?
I personally do not know. I don't know if anybody here does, but what I would say is that I would expect that I'm just going to think here. I would expect that um, persons would be judged on the technicalities of the production and not necessarily exclusively on the content. They look exclusively on the content. They were not interested in how the dancers dance or how the production was put over. Nothing. They were so incensed by the fact that the production spoke exclusively of science, faith, and science, not the science, because we know what the science is. All right. But I am
Um,
not aware of any legislation in Barbados. I stand to be corrected. Kimar, you can correct me. Caswell, you can correct me. But I am not aware of any legislation passed through Barbados, passed through the Parliament of Barbados, that established the LGBTQ2 plus or any other gender component as a
um,
community in Barbados. I'm not aware of that.
Freddie, you have a situation in Barbados where the government is, and not only the government, but the prime minister is pandering to the international LGBTQ2 plus, whatever they call themselves. Every day they get a new letter. Um, and they do not want to damage her chances of becoming Secretary General of the United Nations. So she's the poster child for it. So she will jump into any sphere to get her there. And when you say one thing, you gotta say the next. And you must blame Barbadians for her, because we knew who she was and who she purported to be before we voted for her and said she's the greatest. You remember this condoms in prison aspect that caused the fallout between Bishop Athley all those years ago. So this is nothing new. This was their simmering waiting for the opportunity for her to get there. That's probably why she got all the money from all these people to get her campaigns going, because the campaigns were overfinanced according to the laws of Barbados. And now now they are trying to change the country. They actually has some laws that speak to domestic partners and sexual orientation now, because they are easing them on the books. Now you hear even one priest in the Senate that want to take God out of the Constitution, remember?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the thing is, because they're all catering to her nonsense, right? We have a particular culture. We know what it is. But I remember somebody saying that there were 56 genders. And a person corrected them and said there were 2 genders and 54 mental conditions. You know, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. But we are jumping in there because the international community that will help her to become Secretary General, that they will destroy this country as best they can so that she can become realize her ambitions. You know, but if she can't, and she doesn't stand for anything, you know, even truth, because I don't normally like to speak to myself, but you remember some weeks ago when they came up with the national insurance um, bill, amendment bill. They did it the Friday, right? And then you had Saturday, Sunday, and then 2 bank holidays, Monday and Tuesday. So the people didn't get a chance. And thank God for the Marcy Week show, because I went on. That's when we started this whole thing. I went on. I asked Marcy if I could use her show to let the people know what was going on, because I was thinking about starting something, but it would have taken too long to start. Marcy was already established, and she agreed. And that is where we started with this national insurance thing. That so we wanted to sensitize the people. There was nothing much you can do, because the first working day was the Wednesday, and it was scheduled to be passed on the Wednesday in the Senate. So I called for a sick out. I didn't expect that everybody would have sick out, but I said on the program that I will have to attend the Labor Department the following day, that we were going to have any sick out, because I had a case for some person, and we were taking, it was months old, and that person is suffering. So I will go and represent that person. I said it on the show when we announced the sick out. And could there, I work for myself. So who do I call and say I'm sicking out? You know? The woman is silly. So she is at the conference from all reports talking about I tell people to sick out and I be at work. If I employ me. So I'm going to call my boss and say, Caswell, I ain't coming in today. I sicking out. She's silly, and she's so weak that became an issue, because several people called me, even from the conference, telling me that she's saying things about me. And she even mentioned Snow, poor dog. You know, she's weak. But she's using this country, but allow me, Freddie, to even go on to say that I saw some aspect of the conference that, and where they had karaoke. The conference is about reporting to the people of the party what the ministers have done for them over the years. The last year conference, because I have arranged several BRP conferences. I don't know what the conference is all about. And that conference is to get the ministers, when you're in government, to account to the Barbados Labour Party what they have done. They didn't do anything, so they had karaoke. It is shameful. And they're destroying everything. I am so ashamed of them. It's funny. I'm ashamed to let people know that I used to be part of them because they destroy everything they put their hands on. We have a system where the speaker, the presiding officers of the parliament, are supposed to appear to be neutral and not serve, not supporting the government, because we get our traditions from England. And as a matter of fact, in England, when you are elected Speaker of the Commons, you have to resign from the party. We don't go that far, but normally you will stay away from public political party things. Now we have a president of the Senate he's not the president of the party too. Something is wrong with that. I call that man my friend. I wish I could have spoken to him and said, look, what is you doing? You're destroying this place. You destroy everything that we held dear, you know. But the Barbados Labour Party doesn't accept any standards, and anytime they come to a particular standard, they don't like it, they fall below it. And this is what they're doing now. The president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House should not be at a party conference. Far less run for office. But here we go. They're destroying everything in this country. And then the one come and attack poor me with lies. Because I announced to the country on this show that I will be going to the Department to represent a person who got dismissed unfairly. I went to represent somebody who could not represent themselves, who got dismissed and wasn't given a cent, and I went to make sure they got a handsome payout for the year's service. And she will criticize me for that, because one of the rich people that support her had to do the payout. That's why she's vexed.
Kimaro, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, seems to be a fest.
You got
Yeah,
just the way we flowing now.
yeah. Well, it seems to be a very festive weekend. So, I didn't get to watch a lot the conference that Caswell spoke about. But I heard some very interesting things were said. From my understanding, Sanjay Bradshaw was supposed to attack me. um, so I was waiting on that because I have some questions to ask in regards to these amendments to the Barbados Water Authority Act. I said she's the Minister of Water Resources. Maybe she could come and answer some of them. Maybe. Um, but I don't suspect that because uh, right now there's room for people to ascend to prime ministership after the prime minister goes off to the UN. So I don't suspect that she would want to ruin those chances um, going forward. But I mean, the country is really adrift right now, and we're hearing serious rumors. We're hearing of instability among our parliamentarians. We're hearing about instability in the political party which governs us. Um, and that is never good going forward. So we have to see who will be the prime minister's replacement at the level of prime ministership. We are seeing much like Caswell. I have a lot of respect for Reginald Farley as well. Um, seem to be a okay guy. I usually sit and watch Caswell and Farley tip for tat in the house at the time, and it was good to watch. You know, it was good to watch. We really missed Caswell from the Senate. So it was a horrid thing when we had to go to an election in the middle of a pandemic just to get Caswell Farley up to the Senate of Barbados, right? And this is where now I am. Was a bit angry with the president of Barbados. As she put back Crystal Dritz in the Senate, she could have put back Caswell Farley. But the problem with that is that the government made her the president, and from my understanding, the term of the president is only 4 years. So they purposely set it up that the tenure of the president will fall within their term so that they would choose the person who becomes the next president of Barbados. Because they don't suspect that they will give her another run, right? So we might be looking at, I don't even want to say out loud because it might happen for real. But we might be looking at another Labour Party stalwart installed as president. So that's really constitutional review process could come in that the people of Barbados could vote directly for a president, ceremonial or otherwise. Um, so right now the constitutional review committee is going on. So there is some room for discussion as to how we could set up a future Barbados. But I think that there's something more sinister at play here. Like I asked David Commission on a television show like this, what was the reason for going to a republic when you know that we were not ready? And what he says of going to a republic and then consulting after? I would suspect that this year should have been the year that we spent consulting with the people, asking questions, having the town halls, meeting with people, coming up with a plausible constitution from public input, and then ascending that as the new republic constitution as opposed to doing it backwards. But this thing is never about us because when they went republic, we were on lockdown. So they did that in the middle of COVID. I mean, that could be, that's the worst thing you could do. Errol Barrow is not that disrespectful to the people. At least we could have gone on the garrison freely. I mean, it wasn't boring. So think about it. Many of the people in society could brag about going to independence and watching the Barbados flag being raised for the first time in 1966. I can't brag about that in a republic. I cannot have that brag and boast to say that it was any proud moment of Barbados going to republic because it wasn't even about us. And only a few of us were invited. Right?
I
So,
was in the Senate and I wasn't invited.
see?
And they apologized then sometime later because I didn't get an invitation, that kind of stuff. I didn't get it. You know, to realize that I'm a Senate, I didn't get an invitation.
Hmm. No, that was purposeful work. We know that. They didn't want you to come and rob a rose the evening.
You know,
Right?
I laugh, but boy,
Yeah. So that's what we are facing. But as Caswell said, this was all part of the mission to become United Nations General Secretary. I heard him speaking about the LGBT community. But if I'm being fair and balanced in my contributions, I never really heard Miriam Molly speaking openly for the LGBT group. I never heard it from her mouth that she endorses the movement. However, I heard it from the leader of another political party, though, right? So she might not be saying it, but right now the leader of the biggest political party outside of the Barbados, the party is openly endorsing the LGBT movement. So maybe we need to have a broader, open discussion about that, because these the importation of these foreign cultures into the country, it changes the dynamic of it. So if you allow these type of new age activities into the country, and referencing Dave and Marcia's situation, then they're gonna try to outlaw heterosexual activity. If you can't even represent it in a play, there are only two genders, man and woman. You lost me when you gone to cis cisgender and he, she, and they, them. You lost me. I know about man and woman, male, female, vagina, penis. Those are the body parts that a man and a woman is married. If you come to me with anything else, I am totally lost as to what you are speaking about. And
this is
to, to introduce that, to introduce that into Barbados, They started with the schools. Cause look at what they did with the IDB situation, right? So look at it. And I got this one from Caswell when they brought in that welcome stamp. Then in legislation they put domestic partnership, domestic partners, right?
You
Domestic
know,
partners. That's great. But go ahead, Caswell. Go ahead.
no, it's the remote. As people are looking, I just want to tell you, the act is not called welcome stamp. You get a welcome stamp, but the legislation is called the remote. Um, it, 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 I try to remember the name. It's remote something bill.
Remote employment, something.
Hmm. I think report. So you gotta check for that and see because when people hear welcome stamp, they think that it is that's the name of the act, but it's there. I can probably try to pull it up and see if I can tell you what it is right now because it's there in the legislation. They want people to see it. They see that we were doing this thing in this life for the longest time. Um, Remote employment. I think it's what it's called, but I will double check. Let me
In
double
Canada,
check.
right now,
Hmm?
if you go on the Canadian thing and you looking for Barbados, they're saying that same-sex marriages are legal in Barbados. You know, Canada tells its citizens that same-sex arrangements are legal in Barbados. I think you could go online and read that. That's wrong. That is not in accordance with the law. So so they're saying through the changes to this welcome stamp program that same-sex marriages are allowed in Barbados, and it's on their website. It's on the internet. If you want to look at it, that they are marketing Barbados as a jurisdiction that no facilitates same-sex unions. Now, my criticism here is not I ain't discriminating on who like who and that and you know not homophobe, but we speaking to the actual reality of what is happening, what the government is doing, the changes that they're putting in legislation. And instead of you having church leaders coming out to speak against this thing, because fundamentally the churches in Barbados are, and by law and by God, they are supposed to be against that type of behavior. However, what we're seeing now is a marriage between the church and the state, where our church leaders are speaking more like politicians. Just look at the conference over the weekend. That reverend or pastor or whoever he was saying things that I can't believe that he was a reverend.
Who that was, Kivar? Who he was?
I
Curtis, is the fellow from St. Lucie Church, the priest down there.
I,
He's Curtis something.
Oh, well,
It's
not
it's
this,
called
not this.
it's called the remote employment bill. Sorry.
Yeah, I sent it to you just now. I This is one reverend here, Kimar, that I am not deviating from the Bible one iota,
hmm,
and I can tell you, God knew what He was doing when He said, "Male and female created He them." Even the animals don't get it wrong. I never see a bitch run a bitch or a male dog run down a male dog, except to
The
fight.
Tabidi.
I never see it. I never see a rooster run down a rooster to mate a rooster. I see a rooster run down a rooster to beat a rooster. I have never seen this before. And this phraseology, the science, has emerged out of the pandemic where people wanted to promote an agenda that was not science. So I'm not surprised that they're going to try to use the phraseology to bring forth. I remember a meeting that I attended at the Dighton Griffith School, and I remember a so-called doctor getting up and making the statement that there are more than XY or XX chromosomes. And I have never heard a virologist globally, a doctor, or any expert uh, physician or medical individual ever express anything other than an XX and an XY chromosome. But you see, people can try to fool people into thinking that the science is science. Now, I'm not saying that there are not times you come across an anomaly. That happens in anything. But that doesn't make it the norm. The norm is male and female. Sometimes you'll have a child born with the same with two sets of organs, but that is not the norm. And we know why that happens. Because man chose to do what he wanted to do, and God cursed man with certain aspects of life. We understand that. But don't come and try to impose it upon us as a country and tell us that I gotta look at a he and call her a she if he decides to be named a she. Because I ain't doing it.
Well, you could be charged in
Well,
certain countries
yeah,
if
well, they are
you
charged.
if somebody refers to themselves as what are your pronouns? Instead of going by he she, you go by they them. And if you as an employer refuse to acknowledge your rights to these persons who you could clearly see as a man in front of you, but he wants to be called she or he wants to be called they or them, they could sue you, right? For on the grounds of discrimination. And they could put up your picture and go on a whole social media tirade and cause people to turn against you because you may not be. But can I go and say, well, because I'm straight, I want right, and because I'm straight, I want a house, and because I'm straight, I deserve to be the director of the central bank? It don't work like that. So I don't understand why we should be forced to make legislative changes to accommodate any social group of each other. I don't care which group it is. It could be the FGB, what, it don't matter to me. No group should be given the power or the right or the inkling to feel that they could pressure an entire country and an entire government into facilitating something that is so unnatural. Because to keep a country going, they have to have population increases. Babies have to be born. If not, the country will die. And Barbados is dying because the birth rate has slowed down to a very low point. And that is why the Prime Minister over this weekend was speaking about immigration and bringing people into Barbados. Right? If they go the route of same-sex marriages, naturally that don't increase the birth population. It can't, right? And then you're gonna have same-sex couples wanting to adopt children. Right? Those type of things never happen in Barbados. But unless you got money, a lot of money, and you're able to buy off somebody to make it happen under the radar, but these things don't happen. So it is a conversation that needs to be had from the government with the people about these changes. And like I said, this is not these are not comments to bash anybody's sexual preference. We don't do that, but we're speaking about what is happening here and the changes to our culture that can come from making these changes onto a unnatural process, which can't help Barbados in any way. If they could bring two men and one man could impregnate a man and bring a baby, then maybe you could get me.
Well, that's what a claim that they have done. I think it is the UK or the US. They claim to have done that, Kimar.
Which organ is he going to bring the baby through?
I don't know. Maybe a church organ. I don't know. I don't know. Apparently, they transplanted a woman's womb into the man or something. But you see, that's what they had to do. Which should
Look,
tell them alone that it ain't natural. Because
look,
if it was natural, he will have it in him already.
look. But
But anyhow,
you don't see the contradiction here. You are talking about LGBT nonsense, but yet still you want more people in Barbados. You know that can happen when you got man and man, woman and woman. Two rams don't make a lamb, and I will go along with this thing as soon as two rams make a lamb. I will. I've never seen that. I raised sheep when I was a little boy. I've never seen two rams making out and getting a lamb. Never happened. It is unnatural, and they know it. But yet still they are asking you, oh, we want more people. We want the population too small, but you can encourage people to have same-sex relationships. Same-sex relationship does not produce offspring. I think you should tell her that to me because I don't think she listens to me.
But you see, gentlemen and lady, speaking from a Christian minister's perspective, even God permits people to choose what they want. If they want to burn in hell, they can choose to go and burn in hell. Got the freedom of choice. If they want to go after man, God Himself don't have no problem with that in the sense that He will deal with it in due course. What we do have a problem with is trying to impose your view, which is not scientifically based, on the rest of the world and the rest of us, and trying to make us conform to your polluted thinking. And I am not going to be a part of that. Lock me up. I will tell you this now. This woman, this time marrying one of them, I will hand my marriage register and all my licenses and everything. I will hand it back to the government, and they can keep it and go and do whatever they like with it. I will not be marrying any of them.
That's
Right?
considered to be hate speech, Pastor.
Well, then Jesus hated. Then so I in good company. 'Cause he made it quite clear, quite
Yeah.
clear.
Well, um, before he passed, Dr. Dennis Law made a
Mhm.
comment at a
Yeah, I
meeting.
remember.
I mean, it was
Remember?
hot, man. I won't repeat what he said, but woo.
Yeah, he
But
was hot. He was hot.
yeah, and, he repeated it in Bayesian terms that we could directly understand, right? And he was vilified all over Barbados for making such a statement. But he was right. It is looking like we're seeing, so, I mean, not endorsing the words openly, right? But he was right in terms of the institution that they're trying to set up, in terms of the CNZ union or whatever, right? But as Caswell said, we are focusing on it from the perspective of we need more people in the country. We need more births in the country, right? Looking at immigration to bring people here may not be the best thing because we don't know what they're coming with, right? We seem to want to bring people here, um, and the country is not even working for Barbadians as well as it should. So I don't see how you bringing people here to join in the muck, right? They still got to use the QVH. They still got to drive on the roads. They got to put the children into the schools, and everything is malfunctioning. So if you can't get Barbados to work for Barbadians, I don't see you bringing all of these people here. And when you bring all of these people, they don't even merge into the majority population. They remain exclusive. They stay within their own circles, right? But they are looking at this thing, and you heard Wilford Abrams coming out speaking about citizenship by investment, right?
That is something that we
They
have to
want,
deal with on this show.
yes, they want to sell our passports, right? And Dominica, Dominica has it, right? Well, two other countries through the Caribbean have it, and their passports go for at least $100,000, $200,000. But you have a lot of international criminals who have money who go into these countries and get passports, diplomatic passports, so that they have international immunity, so that the Interpol and the FBI and Scotland Yard and the Mossad and those places don't lock them up. Right? So when the Carl Mitchell came in, he had to actually remove people who were non-nationals who got St. Kitts and Nevis passports and diplomatic status. He had to remove them because the last government saying that they were giving out these citizenship things to people who had the money, but they were involved in financial racket. Right?
But
Just look at the
but
situation with Alan Stafford. Right? That guy with the big T20 cricket where he was giving away $1 million if you could hit the clock. And he was just giving money. But when they found him out, then we got to understand what was happening behind the scenes. Right? You were saying something, Calvin.
no, I'm going to say to you, see, people laugh when they say these things. You know, I used to be an immigration officer, right? And I was a lot of things.
Yes, so I'm
And
finding out.
uh,
So I'm finding out.
yeah, under the Immigration Act, there
Uh,
is a provision for people to come to this country and become immigrants by investment. That means you keep your passport for where you live, you travel on that. But that is not good enough for some people because some of these criminals want to be able to move through the world and not and some of them can't even get passports from their own countries because the countries want to come back there to apply for them. Because if they ever get back there to apply for them, they're locked up. But we would rather bring those people here because they have money. But these are criminals. A lot of them are criminals. And our passport would be so devalued that you will hear them that we want visas to go everywhere. Barbados, you're going to go someplace, you're going to get a visa because they don't trust the integrity of Barbados passport anymore. I remember people used to try to forge Barbados passport together because the Barbados passport was highly respected. I mean, you went to Canada and some other places, you could not, the Barbados passport, you had a lot of freedoms. But if you start doing citizenship by investment and you bring all those mobsters to Barbados and give them citizenship, when you want to go anywhere, you're gonna be so scrutinized. It isn't funny, you know. My son has 2 passports, and I tell him, listen to me. Especially when you're traveling the other parts of the world, show them your Barbados passport. Keep your Barbados passport handy. And you will surprise the reception he gets as opposed to if he has the other passport. All right? Our passports are respected. They will not be so respected if these people, for the sake of a few $1,000s, start. And the government is supposed to come up with ideas for investment in this country. Passport is not an investment. That's gonna be a one-time deal. Hey, what are you gonna do? Sell every time you want money, you're gonna sell a passport? No, that's not economic planning. That is something short of criminal behavior. Because some people, and not only that, but we even here now has given them they call it something with the republic, the national honors. We get a criminal here, there too. So we are skirting around the place with international criminals. But you practice it locally first. You practice dealing with the local criminals, and then when you get the chance, you get the feel of it, you're going for the international people now. Don't ever forget, my wife could not go to Parliament opening to see her husband becoming a senator and that kind of stuff because they had a room for her. So I was not given evidence that my wife could go. But I saw criminals, drug men that the police identified, saying that these are criminals in Parliament, and my wife could not get an invitation. So you understand where this government is going. And they're just refusing to see it because you can have karaoke and that kind of nonsense. My wife, I didn't get an invitation for my wife, but I asked them for an invitation for my wife. They said they got no space. And but mind you, this was a proud moment for me. I wanted to share it with my wife. Couldn't. They had a space for her, but they had space for criminals. I will never forget that.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to add some light on the Senior Welcome Start program. It was just a 12-month initiative they said aimed at boosting the population. The Prime Minister said that the Welcome Stamp is supposed to boost the population because it was dwindling. And she said that the country will need more people to live and to work here. And they say that the move is intended to attract individuals from around the globe to work remotely in Bridgetown for up to a year. And they have the option of reapplying after the year once the time has expired. Right? They made some changes to the Remote Employment Act. They passed it first and then they made some changes. So the changes they set up I forecasted in my book Alternative Views that they were going to go the way of citizenship by investment, right? And you heard Abrams coming up and speaking about it because they intended like St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, Antigua, and Barbuda. They all have citizenship by investment, and their airports go for US 100,000. But the IMF and a lot of these international organizations are coming down on the Caribbean for having such programs in place because when you get a passport, you're then allowed into these are people who couldn't get into other countries. So what they do is to get a passport from Barbados, well not Barbados yet, but from St. Kitts or one of those places, and then travel into the people's country and go in and do whatever they have to do. So these international countries are trying to stop that, to block these people from entering their countries. Right? You can come to the Caribbean and take a connecting flight to almost any big international country in the world. Right? So that is part of the reason for some of these blacklistings that the Caribbean countries get. Right? Because you have people who are money launderers, human traffickers. They come to the Caribbean to hide out because it is safe. And the laws here allow criminals once you can set up a business. Because setting up a business in the Caribbean is really easy once you have the money. They allow you to part. You just need to read the Panama Papers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
It's a little more difficult, I think, in Cayman than here.
You would see that so much corruption happens where politicians from these large countries keep bank accounts in the Caribbean because our financial rules are not as stringent. Canada clamped down on Barbados because they were accusing the finance minister, Bill Marno, hiding his money in Barbados, and they were calling Barbados a tax haven. Right? So if you can give a man a passport for tax purposes, that is good because a lot of these international conglomerates, these big companies that we often feel welcome bring them here, they only coming here to get away from taxes. They don't want to pay international taxes, so they come to countries like Barbados where they could pay 1% and 2% and 5%, as opposed to paying 30 and 40% corporation tax in international countries. So the money that they would pay in tax, for example, if the tax rate is 40% in their country, and they come to the Caribbean and set up an international business company, they could reduce their so-called tax burden. As opposed to paying 40% in taxes over there, they come here and pay 5 and they give another 5% over to the politicians. So that's 10. So you would have saved 30% in taxes that you would have had to pay to one of the bigger governments. You could come down here, give a politician 5% and pay the other 5 in corporation tax. And that is fine. That is normal. So the bigger international financial organizations like the OECD and the IMF and those people are pressuring Barbados' international business sector. And that is why Mia Motley said over the weekend that our international business sector is on the track because she signed on to the Joe Biden tax plan, a global minimum tax rate of 15%. So we are facing more problems because the
Kimmer, I'm glad you said that because you see this government doesn't have any philosophy. 1 minute somebody says one thing, so they bring the taxes down by this percent, so they're going to carry it back up. We we don't have a philosophy. We just running by whoever has an idea and it sounds good to Miss Motley. She runs with it. That is not the way to run a government. That is not the way to plan an economy. Because they had increased the taxes on the rich, and then quickly saw they brought them back down because she signed off on that nonsense bill. Everybody paid one up between 1 to 5%. Brent not the 1. Right now, the Biden plan, where Biden pay 15. She wants enough on that. She wants enough on everything. You can't be fish and fowl and red herring, and that's what she tries to be.
Not that she
Well,
wants, because she already signed it. She already signed the Joe Biden tax plan, so the rates have to go back at the 15%. So we're our international business sector is basically on. You know that we don't have an international business minister right now.
No, we have a minister of who call it a minister of everything called the prime minister because none of those nincompoops, I mean ministers that she has working with her, has any say about anything. You realize nothing happens until she comes back. And for her frequent visits, somebody told me the other day that she should be counted among the tourism arrivals with Barbados because she really don't live here. you know. So when she comes, there's something's happened. Then because she wants to be noticed that she was here. So something happens, press conference, something. And then quickly so she's gone again. Can't find her. She's like Winston Hall, can't find me, brother. And then the country is on pause until she comes back again. They can't make a decision without her. And that's the biggest problem we have. We have a one woman, a one man government, whichever you.
one person,
Yeah, well.
one person,
Mhm.
one person government.
Yeah.
Solutions, gentlemen. What
Now
can we
before
do?
we do, some person had for the longest while had written a question. He's Trinidadian, and he said that he
Yes.
worked from 1989 to
Yes, I saw that.
1995 or something. If he was going to get anything from national insurance, yes, but not much. It will be when you reach the age to retire, you can apply for your pension. You will not get a pension, but then they will give you a one-off payment, which will be the contributions to the pension component of the national insurance that you get. So all you not get, but all the contributions because you were covered for injury, you were covered for sickness, and all the other things that national insurance covers you for. But the pension component will be refunded to you, so you will get that. So you will still get something, but and it will be depending on your level of income. You might still get a few dollars because you only had 6 years, and you had to have 500 contributions, and 6 years, about 500 contributions is just short of 10 years. So you don't got nearly enough. So I just wanted to answer that before we go off and I forget.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So, gentlemen, what are we going to suggest? We are the opposition, and I know that very often we are critical. We look critically. Don't let me say we're critical. We look critically at matters. But I see some statements turning up in our chat to do with I would call them solutions. What can we do in terms of some of the areas that you've been addressing? The aspect of the citizenship by investment, the matter, for example, with the with NIFCA that I mentioned earlier. What are some of the solutions, gentlemen, that you could suggest to us?
Before you go on, Pastor Ferdinand, I wanted to address something I saw in the newspaper today,
Hmm.
that
Go
the
ahead.
government
Go ahead.
of Barbados is intended to transfer the management of the housing credit fund over to the Central Bank of Barbados. Right? Oh, I mean, I didn't get a chance to read in depth,
Which
but
paper?
that the today's newspaper, Nation, back page,
Nation?
big article.
Well, I didn't read my Nation yet, but let me see
To
if I
do
see
what?
it.
Transfer the what?
The management of the housing credit fund over to the Central Bank of Barbados. Right? And they were speaking about some arrears that there's hope, or what they call it, this a new statement the first called hope. That
Well,
was basically
that Santia's thing. I mean, you know what I mean.
yeah. Yeah, but they're doing. I mean, that I don't understand how that is work. I suspect that should be under the management of the Minister of Finance, partly with the Minister of Housing. But you're
Yeah,
handing
that's what I thought.
You're handing it over to the central bank of Barbados. That confuses me,
For
right?
for for what? To achieve what?
Well, they owe some amount of arrears the National Housing Corporation, right? But that national housing, that's another issue that we need to focus on. Housing and what is happening in terms of the housing policies in Barbados.
Someone is
Because
saying here, Kimar. Someone is saying here, but this was always with the central bank, not the housing National Housing Corporation.
the housing credit fund.
That's what the person is commenting.
But well, like I said, I only saw it today briefly, so I did not get to read in depth. But that piece that I saw, I would have to research that because I don't know that. I I don't know specifically about the margin, the housing credit fund, because I can remember the government making some specific changes to that through the bird plan. Right? They made changes to that and they export to the agricultural credit fund. Right? And they closed down some of the agricultural funding arrangements that were at play. So I am not sure what's happening with the housing credit fund and how it is deployed right now and the role that the central bank has in it. I need to read some more to gain some more clarity on that.
I'm seeing online right now that as of the 1st of February 2004, the central bank assumed responsibility for the management of the Housing Credit Fund, previously administered by the Minister of Housing, Lands and the Environment. That is on the central bank website of Barbados.
But why?
To say that the fund's portfolio at the time was valued at over 100 million Barbados dollars.
What
Um,
is the funds used for? What exactly are the funds used
Principal
for?
objectives of the HCF continue to be to help to alleviate the overall shortage of housing in Barbados, to improve significantly the existing housing stock, to shift the initiative for housing towards the private sector, and to broaden the ownership. Oh dear me. To broaden the ownership base of housing in Barbados. That third one is interesting. To shift the initiative for housing towards the private sector.
you see, when you shift the initiative for housing toward the private sector, you are shifting the initiative for not for poor people housing, not for people because government. I keep telling people all the time that government is here to take care of the poorest of the poor. They are not here to supposed to be pushing and trying to make people rich. They have done enough of that. Right? The government must always be in housing, especially for housing the poor. If you leave, nobody makes money on housing poor people. Nobody. It just doesn't happen that way. You think you're gonna build a few blocks and put people in because you care about the country. Investors don't. Investors want to know how much money they are going to make. Not and unless they can make it without employing a single soul, they will do so.
Yeah.
The
Well,
problem here is that the government now has to look out for the people. Look, these people who work in gas stations, driver messengers, maids, school meals workers, who will house them or who will put a housing program in place that they can be housed. I hear about talking about giving a piece of the rock. When you build, and the thing is, when government build houses for these people or get people to build houses for these people, they end up little things, little bigger than a pig pen. And if you are renting somewhere and then you get one of these houses, then you got to leave the fridge in the yard because you can't get through the door. The bed that you had in your bedroom can't takes up 9 times to the bedroom, and you can't turn around it. You gotta be setting up on the bedroom, somebody want to pass you, and that kind of foolishness that government produces for people. Government has to put affordable housing for poor people, and the rich people will not do it. You do not make money housing poor people, and that is why we pay taxes to help each other. and government got to stop taking the taxes and giving it to everybody else, and instead of using it for who it is intended for. It's intended for the hospital. It is intended for the roads. It is intended for education. You see what you realize all those things are failing? Because the taxes that we are supposed, initially, that's what the taxes were for. Sanitation, roads, education, health. That's what that's what our tax burden used to go out toward. Now, all of those things, and we can see potholes that you can hide in them at night. Nobody will see you. You have the hospital, the worst it's ever been. Education in a mess. Everything is the money is supposed to be paid to for, and they even though taking even additional money on your national insurance and paying to a fund to pay into the hospital, and we don't know where that money is going. Everything is going wrong.
Yeah,
And
but
government is
I want to jump in here, Kaza. A disclaimer. I think I said on the show before. I am actually a licensed real estate agent in Barbados, so I could tell you a lot about the land situation and a lot about the housing situation in Barbados. The average house and land for a three-bedroom house, you can pay about $285,000. Right? That's if you buying it on your own. What the government is supposed to do, or what governments are supposed to do, are to come up with targeted social programs through the Senior Housing Credit Fund to build houses below that value, that people who are working for income below a specific level could be able to afford them. So if the government wanted to do anything for public servants, right, they could allow public servants to come and borrow from the Housing Credit Fund mortgages at a reasonable and cheap rate and give them a proper house, right? But they don't do things like that because what is happening is that the government is more focusing on earning foreign exchange.
But you know that used to be done under Barra. You see all those houses across the road out here in Husbands and Oxnards.
Hmm.
People paid $25,000 for them back in the 70s, and now they're worth $200,000, $300,000, and all kind of stuff because of course the price appreciated and stuff. But back in those days, and they went a lot about the civil servants mostly. But so exactly what you're talking about happened when your father was a boy, or but no, these people come out and they're shifting government's responsibility for taking care of the poor to nobody because nobody takes care of them if the government doesn't do it.
Yes. And to make it even worse, in 1994, Ornafa passed what you call the Investment Sector Bill, a bill that was sponsored by the IDB for 30 something million dollars. Cheap money. And that bill opened the window for what you call foreign direct investment. And the foreign direct investment came in, and that's when they played around with the same land policies and rezoning the lands. Right? That's when they started to rezone the lands. They started to approve large plots of plantation lands for housing purposes. Right? Golf course developments. So a lot of these $1 million houses that you see on the golf courses and stuff like that, all the agricultural lands that government allow people to build on, that money came in, as I said, through foreign direct investment. And that's when they started speaking about land fetching its highest value. So the people who had board houses on the beach side, living next to these large new hotel developments, when the government charged them land tax, the land tax was so high that so many people had to abandon the houses on the beach side because they couldn't afford it. So the government actually created an injustice where they robbed so many poor people out of their lands by allowing these big hotels to build on the coastlines. Right? There are so many examples of that. So what is happening is that you have expats and people coming back into Barbados and purchasing the house and land. So the average value of the house and land, and through inflation and other things, keeps increasing. That for sure in this day and age it is priced out to the hands of the average low income earner in Barbados. And the average person who moves upper class, he had to own a house through a mortgage. So he can't buy it cash. So there's a huge set of Barbadians living on mortgage payments that if they default for too much longer, the banks can snatch up the houses and they move back down into the lower classes. Right? The
You see,
people
but
above
one
that.
time, right?
So go ahead, go ahead.
So one time people used to be encouraged to build their own house, and gradually, I remember my father. He had a very small house. And then eventually he kill a cow, and sell a pig or whatever, and then he add on a little piece more and that's that. Now we have forced people into slums, government units to call them, and but my father had land that we can plant food. So even though he was low income, we never went hungry. And it was a great feat to feed 15 of us. None of us ever went hungry. But he had land and he had um, the skills to plant and to provide food for us. That is not being encouraged anymore. When the government gives you a piece of land, you don't have enough to put up a clothesline. So you will always be in poverty. You don't have any way to make an additional income from your land or anyone else. You build slums, and some of these. If you're looking out there by near Orange Hill, I don't know what you call it now. Some little ugly, pretty houses. They're small, too small, and that is only for that's like a pad when you're a young fella just left school and you want to go with your girlfriend. You want your mother to know you to get one of them little places, you know. Now that's becoming home. So government is not looking out for the poor people, but the poor people looking out for them. Though, look at the whole bunch of poor people down in St. Lucie. Um, you see rich people down there. Rich people that turn up at the conference around election time. They don't come to
Well,
these conferences.
Trevor, I want to bring your attention to something here, right? You remember when the government stole Ross University from Dominica?
Yes, I will remember that.
The housing arrangements for those students, scandalous, right? They house the persons in Coverly, right? You could remember the land was basically given at spit price over to entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the entrepreneur did whatever he do. And the premises say that the government got back at least $4 million in the transaction. So the students that were housed at Ross, the rents were so astronomical and they were bleeding the students through the ears. And the government basically mandated those students to be staying in those quarters, right? They couldn't stay other places. So the government is using itself to guarantee income for entrepreneurs who provide housing, right?
That is why we're saying the whole night. The government takes care of the rich, the people who can give them something, and their campaigns who can give them a little something when under the table. They're not looking out for poor people. I remember that land at Corvity. Barbados Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union Limited wanted to purchase that land to do to set up farms. We actually had, and I said we because at that I was a director of the credit union at the time. And we actually had house designs, and we had certain lots that people who lost their jobs in 1991 would have some wanted to get into farming and stuff, and we were going to purchase that. And if you remember that land when you saw them digging up foundations and stuff, it's the road, they went on 20 feet. before they find rock. You want to know why? Because that was great agricultural land, and the government took it and give it to somebody to build houses on, and that was a scandal because it was the land. It's, it was great for agriculture. You couldn't find rocks under the there. You had to go down 20 feet in some cases. Remember when they were digging the new roundabout after that little boy got killed? There with the little thing that jutted out into the road. And then they decided at that point, all of them we can change it into a roundabout. Then Ross people came, so that Ross people wouldn't have to go up to the airport and come down. And they started digging off the foundations for the roundabout. They went down 20 feet and more. It was agricultural land, and the credit union wanted to buy it for its members to have farms. I was on the board at the time, and they didn't even look at us. See, so these governments, and I'm not talking about BLP, DLP, no, I talk about governments. All of them make sure that poor people remain poor. They don't give them a leg up, and then what they do, they put the invest, they invest in rich people or people that look like us, and they give them all the assistance to make sure. The same thing I said with the cards earlier. The car dealers were given a 20% rebate on the consumption tax for cars, while the black people who tried to get into the car business had to pay that 20% on top of everything else. Run them out of business. This is what we do in Barbados. Barbados is not, the black governments of Barbados don't care anything about black people, and this one more so than anybody else. Make fun at you, jump up, even to make fun at Tom Adams. Yeah, on that show when they're talking about Mr. T, don't hold me. You imagine that song was critical of Tom Adams, and they had it and made jamming and dancing to it and pretending to be singing because I heard her voice. That's not a singing voice. Freddie, if you want to hear singing, you sing something for her. A lot of people don't know that you can sing really good, Freddie. But
oh, we're going to sue at a concert. Don't worry.
And they are so silly. That song is supposed to be offensive to the Barbados Day Party. I'm here jumping that Mr. T, don't hold me, Mr. T. Like these idiots. And you know the song. I don't want to sing it. I can't sing. I'm not singing anything Freddie. But
we know the song. Don't worry with it.
But that song and that they were jumping up to that at a BLP conference. It shows you how much they know of their history. Their history starts in 2018 when Mayor became Prime Minister. Nothing about Barbados Day Party is important to her or anybody that she has under her wing.
But
well, we were warned.
Right? No, you spoke about Tom
Adams.
Adams.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Kimar.
Right. No, you spoke about Tom Adams. I'm sure that you and Freddie could appreciate this point. One of the most revolutionary pieces of legislation passed under Tom Adams was that of the Tenantry Freehold Purchase Act.
Yes, it was.
Revolutionary.
Nowadays, I find that we the BLP, they spit at it now, right? What you have now is plantation owners applying for subdivision of the land and selling out the plots for 300,000 plus a piece, right? So you can't get land at 10 cents a square foot no more. That was something for poor people. That helped poor people to get houses. I know many people, cause I am I come from St. George originally, so I know a little bit about the plantation lands and how poor people got lands up in there, plantation lands, right? So many of the people who were working at the plantations, during that time, they actually built houses on the plantations that they worked on, right? And so many people got an opportunity to have a piece of the rock, as they say, that they could be using that same land now for investments. Right?
I can tell you something now, right? That land under the Tenantry Freehold Purchase Act. And there's also another piece of legislation called the Agricultural Holding Options to Purchase Act. Even though they didn't say that the land was being sold for $1 per square foot for the agricultural land, it was. So a lot of people at Vaucluse and areas that I know around St. Thomas, they got the agricultural land because you got the land that you were living on and the plot, because a lot of those people had plots that they worked on the plantation, right? So that realization put a lot of people in, because you paid 10 cents a square foot and people got some magnificent lots, magnificent views for 10 cents a square foot. Now, it dealt with mostly plantation tenantries, right? And the Bell Plantation. You know, when these people were conveying the land to the people in the Bell, under the last administration, they sold them for $250 a square foot. The Bell Plantation, like Quest Village and by Lawrence Hill and all kind of places, those are part of the Bell Plantation. If you look at the act, it says the Bell Plantation. Those were Bell Plantation lands. And the government started robbing the poor people out of them. This is not the last administration, not even this one. And when this one came in, they continued doing it. All right? Even though the legislation says 10 cents a square foot, the government turn around and sell it for $250 and ignore the law. And ignore the law completely. And a lot of those people thought they were getting the deal up in some of these plantations, like the Bell. They thought they were getting the deal. They weren't getting the deal because they weren't aware that they were part of the tenantry freehold purchase thing, and they paid it. Government rob poor people in Barbados. They do it all the time. And the thing is, so when they see Trevor Prescott Jamla and talking about poor people in the country, the people that he represented were being robbed by the government. He doing about it. Trust me. I don't know if I have it here with me, Tenantry Freehold Purchase Act, but I can pull it up and show you the plantations that were part of that part of that thing, because
Well, Kaz, on the point of Prescott and houses, right? I read an article in the paper with Prescott blocking about the fact that houses were being built in St. Michael East, and he didn't even have the power to say who were getting them, and that he was arguing that the people in St. Michael East should be getting the houses first, but um, we all know what happened there. It ain't his choice because he's not even a minister, and even if he was a minister, I still don't think it would be his choice.
Yeah, he made noise about the people, those trees that were burning on the beach, boy, and he troubled the rich people. You didn't minister after that, you forget? Or you don't know about that?
This is the same land, Mr. King, where they were planting the coconut trees, and he went and got the bobcat to dig up the people's thing, and then he made them apologize. Um, he made them apologize, and then just like that, he was not a minister. But that's a strange, you know. I I clearly
he troubled the white people.
Mm.
You can't do that here.
What is strange about that is that when they fired him, he came up with a meeting that was to be held at the Israel Level Foundation. And strange enough, I attended this meeting. And while at this meeting, he was sitting in the crowd, and a couple of people were there. The Pan Africanists were there. And strange enough, David Commission was there. And they were speaking. Everybody was concerned. I even saw the lecturer Tennyson Joseph from KFL. He was there as well. So we were just there, and we started to murmur, wizzy. And then Commission came up to the front and said, "Well, we're all gathered here because of we were expecting to see Trevor turn up here to speak about what happened to him being removed from the cabinet, but he has to announce that Prescott will not be here because he would have advised Prescott not to show up. because the wounds were still fresh, and he would not want him to speak out of turn and say anything that would bring harm upon him. Um, so the crow started to gull, to murmur and busy or whatever. And then Commissioner said, "Well, what I would ask of you, though, do you have any ideas or suggestions as to how we can get Trevor his job back?" And I laughed, right? So he started to speak some more. I got it and I asked a question as to, I said, "Well, I really came here to hear Prescott, but I was surprised to see you, Mr. Commissioner, the ambassador, to CARICOM, that you are here speaking on behalf of Mr. Prescott." And Mr. Commissioner said, "Well, his thing here is that he will speak to the Prime Minister and see if the Prime Minister will consider giving Trevor his job or giving Trevor a job in general." So I say, "Well, Mr. Commissioner, you invited us here to tell us, I need to ask people to beg that for a job for Mr. Prescott. I don't think I understand that one." So he started to get a little rosy, uncomfortable, asking, "Who's this fella? Who's this fella? What is he here asking these questions?" So when I gave my name and said where was he started to attack me and say that the DLP sent somebody here to rob Rose meeting. Well, no, I was simply asking the question, why are you here speaking on behalf of Trevor Prescott? Are you here asking people for ideas and suggestions as to how we're going to go and beg back me for a job? And you are saying that you will personally go and speak to her to get back Prescott a job? That's what you really call us here, right? But it is sad because that was around the time that the Prime Minister was in the newspaper hugging up a little boy who did well. Well, the water in St. John was off, right? So that whole charade with Prescott and his seat and a lot. At that time, you were even hearing rumors that people were canvassing the seat because the Prime Minister was set to replace him with somebody who was tourism minister at the time. But I see Caswell here having something to show, so I'm gonna pass over to
This
him.
I just went off for a few seconds to go and get my law book. All right. This is the tenant. This is the volume 10, the laws of Barbados, and that is 239B, which is the Tenantry Freehold Purchase Act. And I don't like to say things on this show that I can't back up. The plantations that are part of the Tenantry Freehold Purchase Act in St. Michael, the lands that should have been sold for 10 cents a square foot were Bell, Waterford, Baby Lane, Bourne Village, Brown's Plantation, no that was Darrell's, Exchange Hill, Friendly Hall, Friendship, Laird's Tenantry, Laird's Gap, Lower Estate, Map Hill, and they put Hanson in brackets, Neils, Simmons, Waterford, and Wildy. All of those were plantations, and all of those lands should have been sold for 10 cents a square foot. Most of them have been sold for 250 a square foot. This government and all the rest that we had robbed these people who live on these things. Like, for instance, the Quest Village, my lord said, was part of the Bell Plantation. People pay 250 a square foot to my certain knowledge. Right? Because they know people from up there. And I told them that they should have been paying attention. They didn't go to Prescott. They never went. Or have to went to make it the thing. So I'm glad you mentioned that because Kimar, you always send me back to go and look for things. You send me to go and look for the water we use Act 2 and got people put their cares in me talking about the science.
Well, myself and Heather are learning, right, Heather? We're sitting at the
Definitely.
feet. We're sitting at the feet of these two learned gentlemen, one
Mm-hmm.
young and one younger.
Thank you. You know,
I wanted to. It's a pleasure for me to do it. Mhm.
Oh
uh,
my goodness.
I do it because I want people in Barbados to get their rights, but what is they're entitled to. Not me. And people think that I do it. I don't do it for I don't do it for commissions or for fame or fortune or anything like that. I believe that people should be treated fairly, especially if there's a law that says you should benefit this way, you should benefit that way. I don't believe that people should have rights and don't know anything about them. That is why the last time when it was finishing off last week, I mentioned like the thing with the employment, because only today again people came to me today about the same issue. Of course, they didn't see the show, but they had the same issue where employers treated them like dirt in Barbados, and that nobody is standing up for them. Or Cleveland Linus is asking if I have anything for Christchurch. Let me just tell him what the plantation tension in Christchurch were. I got for everybody, man. 2:30 night. It starts here. It says Christchurch. Well, Christchurch has a lot. The plantations were the people who live on those lands for 5 years. They have to be living on the lands for 5 years, right, in order to benefit. And if you were living on these plantation lands for 5 years, then the land must be sold to you for 10 cents a square foot. If you were renting, not if you were in squat. Balls, Baldland, Bentley, Carefield, Cotton Door. I never heard about that one either. Corverley, Cox Road, Darrell's Hill, and they got in brackets Hannah's Plantation. Then Darrell's Hills again, Searles Plantation, Edie Village, Fair Valley Rocks, Fair Pilgrim, Hannah's Valley, Inchmarlow, Leadville, Lodge Road, Lower Grays, Lothers, Newton, Providence, The Ridge, Sergeant's Village, Silver Hill, Spencer, Staple Grove, St. David's Village, St. Patrick's, Vauxhall, which is part of Adams Castle Plantation, and then Vauxhall Plantation, Yorkshire #1 and Yorkshire 2. Those are the things for Christchurch, where people should have gotten the lands if you were living on them for 10 cents a square foot. The law has not been repealed, and the government turned around and make people pay more. I challenge them to deny that, and I challenge them to say that I'm talking rubbish. They know that they were trying to challenge me on what I was saying about the water. Even the moderator been calling because we talking about the science. I know what science he's talking about. He's actual scientist. He know nothing about no science, and he's saying about we were drinking. They said that we were drinking the water. Freddie, allow me to speak to this. They said that we were already drinking it. And I said to them then, I'm saying, if that was the case, it might have been something that infiltrated and entered up, because some people went and built on the Zone 1 area, because we were getting our water from Zone 1, not from toilets. So people do not believe them when they're saying, that we were drinking this thing all the time. It is not true. We had areas of land that collected water, and we didn't allow housing, and in our cases, any agriculture on it, because they would have polluted the aquifer. So we could not have been drinking it because there were no toilets in those areas. Now they want to shrink them. Now, if you shrink them, that's probably why you're going to have to drink water now, because previously you weren't drinking it. And when, they are so sick and it's tiresome that I don't want to go over it again, but I have to. They are going to take the water and inject it into the aquifer. They're going to dig a well and take this dirty water and put it in the well so it can get into the aquifer. Now, when that happens, it will not pass through the limestone to help take out any of the impurities in it, because the limestone in Barbados has been protecting our water supply for a long time because it seeps through very slowly. Rain that falls today will end up in the aquifer 3 months from now. But when you take off the toilet and put little something and stir it up, it goes right in. In 3 months, nothing. It's not a process of seeping into the aquifer. So even if you had water from the toilets and you had it on the surface, the limestone might be able to take out something. But there are some substances that the limestone will not take out. Some diseases that the limestone or chlorine will not kill. And if you have that in the water, you're going to get sick. And you're going to get sick from a lot of things that you're going to start feeling all kinds of pains about your body. You're going to think that's old age. No, it's feces that you're drinking. That is not supposed, if it was supposed to retain it, you're not going to put it out. And they say, oh, other countries drink that water. Singapore does it to some extent, but they do 300,000 tests a year on their water and the water that they do. You think we have the facilities in Barbados, and you trust these people in Barbados, this government of Barbados, to do this type of testing? They got the facilities. What we will have is cholera if we allow this thing. And if they want to attack me, let them do so. I don't mind. They will not be the first, and I thought they will be the last. But what I want the people of Barbados to do is, and today I went by the supermarket and people stopped me outside the supermarket complaining about this water. So the average fella on the street, fella just see me and start complaining. Look, he said, look, you don't. Not my mind that messing up my mind to think about that. I can drink toilet water. They don't understand that they should not have sneaked this thing through Parliament. Even if you could get the purest water in the world, you're going to get water straight from the Alps or whatever else. If you could get that kind of pure water, if it turned out purer than that, because you sneak it through Parliament and didn't tell anybody, we will always be suspicious of that process. We will always be suspicious of the government who put it in train and didn't tell anybody anything. Because of Kimar, this country found out. Because he came on this show and Kimar raised the alarm, was something that Ryan Strong, the Minister without Portfolio, said. And sorry for doubting you, Kimar, but it wasn't really a doubt, but I had to go and check for myself. And first best I checked was the Parliament website, because I was in the Senate, I know how to just sneak things in through Parliament. I start from that mindset. And I start searching, and I went through. And the first thing I see my water, I said, water reuse act. Then let me read this. And there it was. They never said one word that we're going to be using sewage. They call it black water. Right? Because they don't want you to know what they're already doing. And for a government acting on your behalf to be deceiving you, and then go down St. Lucie Jamlet's karaoke. Like nothing happened. Because I didn't hear her speak to that issue yet, Because they got caught. They got caught trying to feed us filth. And now getting fools to call on the calling program to dispute. You cannot dispute the fact that government passed this legislation in May 23rd in the House, and then the next day, the 24th in the Senate, without telling a single soul in Barbados outside of that small parliamentary group and the few civil servants that would have drafted it, anything about it. You really feel that that's how this country should be governed, where people would be able to find out about legislation that will fundamentally affect them. 4 months later, because Kimar found out. Suppose Kimar didn't find out. Next thing you know, you drinking this water. You said, this thing smells funny. You know, thanks. I tell her, I thank God for this young man here. He opened the eyes of people in this country to what this, I can really call it nastiness that the government was perpetrating on the people of this country. So Kimar, again, thank you.
Well,
Yes,
again,
my pleasure, my honor. But you say something that was very important there, that they got caught because the prime minister was the first person out the doors with this thing, you know. Remember, she went St. James speak and she spoke about this tertiary level plan. She was the first person out there. From the time that we brought it out and it hooked into a restaurant, she didn't even come out to save him. Right? She left him
yes.
to dead on this one.
Yeah, but the tertiary level plant, she didn't say what a tertiary level plant does, as far as I understand, because it might mean that the tertiary level plant, what what happens in the tertiary level plant, and people sit down and listen to and ask the question.
But she didn't say it, but Ryan Strong is who went up there and said exactly what it
Yeah,
was for.
he said. I saw the video that you sent around, and I saw it where he said that it would put it in the aquifer.
But I
Mhm.
also saw it where he said that desalination was their focus. I saw it when he said that. We have one desalination facility in Barbados. We are on an island surrounded by sea. Why can't we put down desalination facilities around the island? Why are, when you were speaking, I went back to the information to see how many countries are using um, sewage water in their drinking capacity.
10.
Australia, I don't. I was surprised to see that they called California and Texas countries. That was a surprise. Singapore, Namibia, South Africa, Kuwait, Belgium, and the United Kingdom.
About 7. I was guessing 10.
7. I thought there were 12. I thought there were 12 at first, but when I continue to read the information, I am noting, and note this: China. Let me just get it back here. China uses recovered water. Come on, thing, from cow's milk and recycles it. United States uses recycled wastewater for urban watering. The Emirate, 50% of the wastewater is recycled and reused. United Arab Emirates used for agriculture and animal husbandry and city gardens. So even though they're using recycled water, there are not a lot of the countries that are using it in their drinking water. And when one looks at a report coming out of France, it is said there in that report. Let me see if I can get it back. Um, see if I can get it back. I had it open just now, but they were talking about how the large majority of people would accept drinking recycled water, provided it was tested on an exceptionally regular basis. Now, you talked about Singapore. How many tests did you said?
300,000
Can we do 300,000 per? How often? 300,000 per what?
a year.
300,000 a year. In 365 days, what does that work out to per day? Per day, 300,000 a year in Singapore.
About 10 times.
But
That's
before he answers, right? The you put in how many countries use sewage water in drinking water, but
yes.
we should also put in countries who have tertiary level treatment plants, and that will give you a broader list. countries, and you will realize that those countries are mainly European countries, and
Countries
they
who
with
have what?
tertiary level sewage treatment plants, and it will give you a map also of all of the tertiary level treatment plants throughout Europe, but it's mainly used in Europe, and that's why Satya went to Europe, Netherlands, to get the advice to pass the British Water Authority Amendment Act, because they said she met with the Dutch private water management company. She also met with the Dutch government and Dutch universities as to how to tackle these new issues of water management. Right? And the European Investment Bank are the ones who are providing the funds and the grants for the government to do this technology, because the European Investment Bank, remember, it has great investment in the Blue Green Bank and helping Barbados to tackle the climate agenda through the same IMF uh, Resilience and Sustainability Fund.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, for that 800 tests a day. And
800 tests a day.
yeah,
Do we have the capacity to do that in
we
Barbados?
ain't got the capacity to do
That
more
is
tests.
800 tests around the island per day.
Mm.
So when you miss one of those tests, how many tests you have to miss? How many tests you have to miss before you have a problem?
I don't know because I ain't drinking none. Somebody said that Mwanza said that we already drinking it from seeping wells, right? That suggests to me that there might be some wells that con- tend to contaminate. And when that happens, they move them. I remember when they discovered, even for Harrison's Cave, that a pig pen was contaminated in Harrison's Cave, they moved the man from being put in the Gale Farm in St. Lucie or something like that, because they were even protecting that water. We and that was and from seeping wells, that would have been an error. That would have been a mistake. That is not something that should be happening, because we kept our zone one areas away from the housing development or anything else, so that they won't have any wells. But some let's say that 40 houses in Barbados that seep in, right? And you are able to process that water now and treat it to the extent that it's going to have how much parts per million, because they say, and most agents say, well, if you drink so much and so much, it will kill you, but as so many parts per thousand would not would not do you any harm. But this is the parts per thousand we're talking about here now. But when you take the 200,000 people in Barbados and start and pumping the sewage or whatever, because they can apparently make you do suck wells and carry the sewage down there and drench it in water, it will no longer be a little bit of seepage. It will be a whole lot of filth going into our aquifer. And when you do that, the aquifer will never become pure again.
One of the problems that we've always seemed to have had here in Barbados, and I grew up as a child learning about, not learning, hearing how Bajans are copycats. And I am in 20, this what year this is again now, 2030. See what my computer says. Yeah, 20 is 2030 or 2023. What year are we in? I'm trying to figure out. Wait 2020, no, 2030 is when this thing's supposed to be happening. Sorry, 2023, I think. Um, we are constantly doing things because they're done somewhere else. I would like to I wonder when we will come to a place when we will do things in Barbados because it's what Barbados wants. And it's what the people in Barbados want. And it's what it is to the benefit of Barbadians. Not because somebody else is doing it. Did we build roundabouts because they would help us solve problems, or did we build them because they were being built in England and we just saw how it worked and we decided? Did we do a study? Did we do research to see the benefit it would be, and so I'm not criticizing roundabouts. I'm simply saying we continue to do things because we see it done somewhere else.
Same thing with LGBT. We see it done somewhere else. We want to do it too.
You see, so at the end of the day, I wonder when we will ever come to a place in this country when we will do what is in the best interest of Barbados. And
When
in
our
the best
politicians
interest,
stop.
in the
Um,
best interest of Barbados, desalination is the way to go because we are surrounded by sea.
Well,
Why,
Pastor
why are we
Pran,
even having
the,
this
gov-
discussion? Sorry, go ahead,
the government,
Kimar.
the government through this Mr. Abrahams said that they have all of the infrastructure in place to build the desal plants. The government got money from the European Investment Bank to build these cell plants. All the infrastructure was here, but
but you
the
remember David Estwick before he left office was see I can't remember if he actually got the funding, but he was supposed to be actually getting funding to build the desalination plants in St. Lucie and St. John and some
he
other
got it.
places.
He got it. He secured it. He got it. Since 2017, he had it.
So what happened to that money?
But they started the means replacement with some of it, and the rest of it was intended to go to an entrepreneur. But when the government came in with Abrahams and the government discontinued the contracts, the government did not honor the contracts because they were saying that the government was overpaying and the government could not afford to service those contracts, and they were trying to label it as financial corruption. So the government actually put off the detailed plans, and they used it as a financial decision because they were saying that, and the government saved. I read an article one time, they said that the government actually saved $100 million in overpaying for contracts. Like that was what he was saying. Like, but my thing is, if you believe that it was it, renegotiate the contracts and continue to build these type plans. It is essential. The money was there. That's what the money was put there for, right?
So, someone is saying, Kimar, that desalination is also very costly due to membranes. But at the end of the day, if you have got the funding to do it, because to the best of my knowledge, when funding is designated for governments, a government cannot take it and redirect it for something else just like that. So if you have the funding to do desalination, it may be costly, but you've got the funding to do it. Why are we not doing it?
But not
And the
only
and the
that,
Minister of Finance, with his own mouth at the IMF conference in 2023 this year, expressed that that was our focus.
but not only that, when the desalination plant they use membranes for their reverse osmosis process, and they capture more than salt. They capture any little particles and all kinds of, so the water is pure than the water that we actually get from the reservoir. Because what happens if you pump water in the reservoir, the water will still have things suspended in it. So just like take some sugar and water and put it, and you will see how, especially some of this sugar that be important, you will see a layer of dirt or something at the bottom. What the water authority does is to make sure that they pump when the water settles, they pump the one off the top. But desalination plant don't got that settlement at the bottom. So it's better for us because eventually the water at the bottom, if the reservoir gets really low, you start getting brown water, right? But desalination plant with all these membranes, so and the water authority don't use membranes because they cannot push enough water through membranes to spread bubbles of water when the day come. When the water comes from the wells, from the reservoir, from the wells, and it goes into the reservoir, they don't send that through any sort of membranes to get the water. And I got that information as
Now
a fact.
the desalinated water, Caswell, is that pumped straight through our pipes, or does that go into the aquifers?
Now that goes straight to the reservoirs. They pump
Hmm.
it to the reservoirs
And then to our
and then to our
homes?
pipes, right? They don't go
Hmm.
into the aquifer. So if
Okay.
the water that they were removing some of the filth from was pure water, they wouldn't have to put it in the ground. They would send it straight to the reservoir. You make a very good. You ask a very good question. If that water is so pure, why put it underground? It's pure. Send it to the reservoir. You can't send it to the reservoir because you have got so many little E. coli inside there. It ain't funny. You can't drink it.
Mhm. Yeah. Plus, Casper, this if you look at the numbers on this thing, 5% of the Barbados population is on a sewage connection. So 95% of the population is not connected to sewage, but still
But we
we pay
pay
80.
sewage tax.
So we pay $80 million in sewage tax to solve 95% of people pay $80 million a month in sewage tax for a problem that 5% of the people cause. And there's no way, based off mathematics and logic, that 5% of the people can produce enough sewage water to really help 95% of the population. So it don't make mathematical sense one bit, right? Meanwhile, you ignore seawater that is you have right around the island that ain't gonna run out at no point in time. That is much healthier. You had the funding to do it, the money is there. You're going to the IMF, you could have told the IMF you wanted the same $600 million to improve the desal capacity, but no, you gone straight to the sewage because Mwanza said that good. This is the same Mwanza that lie on the radio to Barbadians, because he denied that the Europeans had any handle in that sewage plant, right? And he did not tell us also that we got loans from the Chinese to build it, and that the government already has about 5 or 6 master plans for water and sanitation that the same David Eswick did, right? So
But
they ain't doing nothing new
jo-
or innovative.
Joel King says that we should stop selling the water cruise ship, and said we don't want this our water. We want them to stop selling our water to the cruise ships. You know, there's a thought there that crossed my mind. We're gonna be selling the water to cruise ships. I wonder if they're gonna be giving our sewage now to process too,
Oh,
because you never know. I because we are gonna produce enough sewage to do to like this came out said from the 5% of people that onto the sewage system. Not gonna produce no great lot of water. So are we going to be getting the sewage from the cruise ships too?
Calzo, before we run off the platform, because our time has gone, we never got around to really even beginning to look at the subject for tonight, but I'm sure it will come back up anyhow. I recall you saying a little while ago. I think I can't think it was earlier. I think it was sometime last week when you were discussing the whole matter of this water, and we were looking at goodness, it thought just slipped out of my mind. Um, Gosh, you were talking about something. I just had it at my fingertips, at the tip of my tongue, so to speak. Um, to do with this sewage water and the feeding of it back into the aquifers, going down through the purification aspect of the country, because we are a limestone country predominantly, if my mind serves me correctly. And what they're saying, Kimar, from what I heard on the interview, what they're saying is that um, rather than the plain sewage going down through our filtration system as a country, they are processing it and then it goes down through the filtration system of the country.
That is
And
an
as a
absolute lie. Simply because
but you are aware of the fact that that is what is his name again, Kimar?
Mwanza, John Mwanza.
Mwanza.
that is
Yeah,
not what the legislation
but that is
says.
what he said. But isn't that what he said, Kimar?
But that is not what the legislation
Yep.
says.
That's
The
what he said.
legislation says that it would recharge the aquifer, the underground supply. Now, how do you recharge the underground supply? Rainwater, 3 months. So every day, are they going to put it in a big pool, a big like a lake, and put it in there and let it seep down into the water? No, no, not doing that. They're putting it directly into the aquifer. That is what they provided for in the law. Don't mind them.
That is what I understood as well. That they're gonna pour it directly into it.
You know, the see thing is,
Well,
I do not like when
you
public
mean it's
officers.
going to bypass the filtration system? I'm trying to understand this, and I'm sure other
Right.
They're
The
not
people.
going to.
aquifer.
They cannot put it through the filtration system simply because the filtration system has a 3 month delay process. You want it, and what are you going to do every day? Take that water and put it in the lake, and then let it seep through after 3 months? No, that's not what they're doing. They said, then they said, they said they're going to put lakes. But let me find the just very quickly.
Well,
Water Reuse
let me
Act.
while you're looking for that legislation, because I just remember what it was, Caswell. You spoke about. You remember you were talking about something to do with the wells located or person locating water on their property, and they cannot use it. You remember that?
Well, yeah, but that has always been the case, though, because you have to
Right.
get
But
permission from the water
I'm going
authority to.
somewhere. I'm going somewhere with this because we have a $18 million, sorry, a 18 million gallon, I'm told, lake up in St. Thomas. Why? Whose lake is that? Whose water is that? And why isn't that being put into our water system in Barbados?
No, that was man-made on
But
land
man-made,
that belong.
okay, man-made from rainwater.
Now, what happens? Well, it's rainwater, and there are streams that flow into there.
So who does it
Remember,
belong to?
it belongs to Carl Williams, I think it is. Oh, but he's gone.
So
I'm done him now, but
the water on his property belongs to Carl Williams, but the water
mm,
on my property doesn't belong to me.
well, you just said it.
So he can do what he wants with 18 million gallons of water collected in from Barbados's natural water provisions, rain or however you care to put it, and he can do what he wants with that. But I can't do what I want with water I find on my property.
No, you see, no, he actually built a place to hold that water. That's not natural, except that he would have diverted streams and stuff to collect
Well,
that water. Because as little boys, we
but
used to
if he
go in the
did that
gully.
with that in natural, if he did that, he is stealing water off of our water resources.
Well, it could look like that. But let me just, yeah, that
Anyhow,
makes sense. But let me
anyhow,
show you why it is not
I
filling
just
surface
asking,
ponds, right?
minding my business, but I would
And
like
so,
to
so
know.
that it could go into the aquifer. It says here, this is section 14, use of reclaimed non-potable water. Section 14 says reclaimed water that is non-potable may be used for flushing water closets, cleaning outdoor surfaces, watering or irrigating edible crops, house, household gardens, ornamental plants and trees and green spaces, cleaning animal pens, coops and hoarding areas, flushing and cooling equipment, filling surface ponds or lakes. That's F. Now we go down to G. Recharging the 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 groundwater. Now, if that water that was filling ponds and lakes was to go in the aquifer, then you wouldn't have to say it twice. They won't go and say that F filling surface ponds and lakes and G recharging the aquifer because according to what they're saying, the water from the surface ponds and lakes would have been going into the aquifer. They are lying because that water would not be allowed to go to be in. You won't be able to build those surface ponds and lakes in zone 1 areas or zone 8 areas, they're calling it now. They are lying to the people of this country. They are lying to us. I do not know if, because as Freddie said, there are only about 8 or so countries in the world that use this type of water and not necessarily for drinking. And I suspect they want to have some process that they can use in Barbados for to see how it works on us. And same way She volunteered Barbados for the AstraZeneca. She might very well be volunteering Barbados for the sewage water, for drinking sewage water. Because we are a small country, we are a case study for a lot of countries. We're the best one case study for them. So when you have a control group where people usually, most people, we don't cross the border and go anywhere and come back. We're all remaining in Barbados. So they will monitor the health of the people in this country to see what happens after 10, 15 years of drinking sewage water. And then when they get the results, they say, well, okay, well, we're not going to drink that
We
because
cannot do that.
look what it does to Barbados, or oh, Barbados people didn't die too much from it. So we are going to be guinea pigs. That is why this is being done. They want to use Barbados to see how it works. They did it before and they're doing it again. Because by over clear blue sky, we had options. We got other options. We can
Okay.
hold the water that comes from the rain and dam it. But instead of letting it run right down to the sea, we can desalinate. So why are we going to the toilets first? Why are we
Well,
going to the toilets first? They head full of you know what.
Gentlemen, I mean, I have no doubt that this is going to continue to be a talking point for some time. And I'm going to try to do a little bit more research on it myself. But I'm going to look into that legislation you spoke of, Caswell, and see what it says, what it treats. And
The water
as
we use that?
yeah, I have it. I
Okay.
have it. Yeah. And incidentally, I also do have the child protection bill, which we would. It would be nice if we could touch on this, possibly on Wednesday. But I don't know what Marcy would have planned. But maybe we can dedicate some time to this child protection bill on Wednesday and start with that on Wednesday evening. We want to thank all of you. We could go on and on and on. It's such an informative session, and I am exceptionally honored to be here and to learn so much from yourself and Kimar and from Heather. A lot of stuff that I've learned from Heather, even though it can sometimes just apply to her area, the general principles are so important for us. But I wish we would come to the place where Barbadians will base their determinations on values and not on their political affiliations and commitments to party, and look at the values that we as a people have embraced over the years and pay certain attention, serious attention, sorry, to our national anthem. Plenty and in time of need, in this when this fair land was young, our brave forefathers sowed a seed from which our pride is sprung, a pride that makes no wanton boast of what we have withstood, that binds our hearts from coast to coast, the pride of nationhood. The
I
Lord has been
also
the people's guide for past 300 years, with him still on the people's side. You notice which side he's on, Caswell?
mm,
He's still on the people's side. We have no doubts and fears. Upward and onward we shall go, inspiring, exalted, free, and greater will our nation grow in strength and unity.
listen, that is the most operative thing that what we're telling you is advertising for me. It says, and greater will our nation grow in strength and
Strength and
unity. Unity
unity.
Workers Union.
Yeah.
This
Gentlemen,
the anthem was I'm like a prophesying.
All right.
gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you again with us tonight on the platform. We always look forward to hearing from both of you. And I hope we don't get too jealous, Caswell, but particularly from our young colleague,
No, no,
Kim.
no. I like to hear him too. Don't trust
You
me.
know, I learned so much in listening to him.
Not
Uh,
your one. Me too.
yes, yes, and I'm sure Heather will share that sentiment. So
Definitely. Yeah.
we thank you, Kimar, for taking the time to be with us today, tonight. Sorry, we hope you've recuperated from your
And
uh, marathon on Saturday that I heard you you had. Uh,
yeah, well, I had another presentation with me the next day, Sunday, so can I get a lot of rest time? But it's part of the course, so I don't
oh yeah,
mind.
You're young, man. You're young. You got these strength that can't relax. Amen, amen, amen. I tell you, well, it's such a pleasure having you at Caswell. It's really a education, to be honest with you, especially when it comes to the legislative aspects, because you've also, and again, while Kimar has moved you to do some things, you've moved me to do others. And I mean, I have several bills opened up. I have the Barbados Parliamentary website opened up on my computer right now, and I'm looking at some of the bills all the way back um, to see what our legislation is saying. And I think it's something that we need to start paying attention to. Just yesterday, someone said to me, as a matter of fact, just this morning, someone said to me that policy, let me make sure I get it correctly, because they lost a case. They went to court and lost the case because the case was based on their policy that had not become law, and it had not passed through Parliament. The law had not passed through Parliament. And so when they went to the court um, with regards to the particular case, the court ruled that they could not take the action that they were taking because it was policy and not law. And so it's important for us to really pay attention to what is passed through our House of Assembly. And if my mind serves me correctly, Caswell, you said that before a bill can be debated in the House, please correct me if I'm wrong, it must be posted in the official gazette. Would I be correct in my procedure?
But well, it's supposed to be. But what they
It's
do,
supposed to be posted in the
but what they
official
do,
gazette.
what they do, they're going in and say the suspend standing order 616 and whatever else is up, and one of
Uh-huh.
those standing orders eliminates that for the day, and that's how come they can pass a bill in one day because they
Without
eliminate it.
putting it through the official
Without
gazette.
put,
So
yeah,
the
but
people,
they then put it in the official gazette after they pass it, which is actually saying we intend to pass this piece of legislation for you that we have already passed,
whether you
right?
like it or not,
Yeah,
which is the same mantra that our representative for St. James North expressed when it came to the child protection bill, which he said that they are obligated to the United Nations agreements. And from what I see where this bill is concerned, the very first thing that is addressed is that we must comply with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And so, probably on Wednesday,
before you go, I want you to look at. There's a case in Jamaica where the Court of Appeal in Jamaica struck down a challenge to the Bagui laws.
yes, I saw that. I saw that, and
I think
yes,
in Barbados, one
yes,
of our judges said no, it's unconstitutional, you know. But
yes,
the laws were similar. So how come in Jamaica it was um
it
it
was
is
struck
different
down.
from Barbados? It wasn't struck down here, but here it's struck down.
Yeah,
I always thought that the Attorney General should have, in the interest of law and order in this country, appeal that decision. But no, that was government's policy. Government wanted to have this thing done. So lucky for them, a judge did it for them. That's all I'm saying. Lucky for them, a judge did it for them. I,
yes, I
but
saw
that's
that.
as far as I am concerned. That judge was legislating. That's something for Parliament to do, not a judge.
Yes, correct, correct. And so we want to thank all of you, really, for all of you that have taken the time, all of your comments. Good night from Calgary, Alberta. Nigel, we appreciate all your comments. Tyrone, appreciate all your comments. We may not always get to mention all of them. Um, yeah, we removed God from the charter. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. And so many of you explaining certain processes to me. I appreciate it so very much, because this platform is really, Heather, educational platform. It's not just dealing with issues, but it's helping to educate us. And it's one of the things I appreciate with the platform. Your thoughts?
Um, what I would like to say tonight is that from the time I was a child, I heard that when I was growing up in primary school, that Barbados was blessed with some of the purest water in the world, and that we had a natural filtration system, which was the coral limestone rock.
Yes.
And from that, the water runs down into an aquifer, which stores the water until we are ready to use, meaning that we use it to be our natural reservoir. And that was part of the Barbados brand, this water, this natural pure water. And it is a brand. It is something that helps define the country that we have. So how would excuse me, how would it make sense to destroy part of the very thing that makes you, to destroy the brand that you are? It makes absolutely no sense to me. So why are we setting about to devalue Barbados in this manner? We have other things that we can do instead of going to that. So I want to encourage everybody to say no to this sewage water. It is bad for your health. It happened in 1850s. In the 1850s, there was a cholera outbreak in Barbados, and thousands of people died all throughout the island. And we don't want something like that or worse to happen again. So say no to sewage water.
Thank you so very much, Heather. Thank you for being here and co-hosting with me. I couldn't have asked for a nicer co-host.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And I'm not flattering you. I usually make statements. I usually make statements that are very straight and very true. I don't flatter anybody. If I didn't
Right.
like your shirt, I'd tell you that. But I like this
Okay.
shirt. As a matter of fact, it looks like one I could use. But anyhow, I'll just leave it at that. Caswell, thank you so much again for spending the time with us tonight. We know that these 3 hour stints are taking time from your own time. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. Kimar, just wanted to tell you how many comments we received concerning that youth evening. I think it was last week, Wednesday. And I hope that Marcia will facilitate another one of them soon, so that we could hear from some more of those wonderful young people. So, I want to thank all of you for being here with us tonight. Heather, thank you for being here. Kimar, thank you for being here. Caswell, thank you for being here on behalf of Marcia and Dave. Thank you all of you who sent in your comments and your questions and everything, that your support. We thank you here on the People's Parliament. And so we want to say good night to us all. Good night to you, Caswell. Good night to you, Kimar. Good
Right.
night to you, Heather. God bless you all. And we trust that you have and remember tonight to pray for our brothers and our sisters in Jamaica. All right? They've just survived a horrible earthquake. So remember them, please, in your prayers. So God bless you and
And
good
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 night.
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 Good
Good
night.
night.